The champagne glass shattered against marble floor as Brandon Cole's voice cut through the silent ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, the woman standing beside my brother, the one he trusts with millions of dollars, her father was a convicted fraud who destroyed innocent families. Lena Hart stood frozen under the chandelier's unforgiving light, 300 pairs of eyes burning into her while television cameras captured every second of her humiliation. The shy waitress who once served coffee for $2 an hour now watched her entire world collapse in front of the city's most powerful people. But what happened next, what Ethan Cole did in response, would shock everyone in that room and change two broken lives forever. If you want to see how a single act of kindness inside a rundown diner led to this moment, stay with me until the end. And please hit that like button and comment which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The corner booth of Maggie's Diner had become Ethan Cole's refuge from a life he barely recognized anymore. Nobody knew who he was here, nobody stared, nobody wanted anything. He could sit in his worn wool coat, the one he'd owned since college, before the money, before everything, and just be invisible for an hour. That was worth more than the 8-figure deals his executives closed every week. Tuesday morning, 6:45. The diner was nearly empty. Ethan nursed his second coffee, black, while pretending to read emails on his phone. Mostly, he just sat there, avoiding the penthouse apartment where his daughter Maya's laughter used to echo through rooms that now held nothing but expensive silence. 3 years since the accident. 3 years since Sarah died. The grief had settled into something harder than pain, a kind of numbness that let him function, run his company, raise Maya, go through all the required motions of living. But feeling anything real? That part of him had died in the car alongside his wife. More coffee, hun? Ethan glanced up. The waitress, Lena, her name tag read, held the pot with both hands like she was afraid of dropping it. Mid-30s, maybe. Thin in a way that spoke of missed meals rather than gym memberships. Dark circles under gentle eyes. Her smile was automatic, practiced, the kind service workers develop to hide whatever they're actually thinking. Please, he pushed his cup forward. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured. A few drops hit the saucer. Sorry, I'm so sorry. She grabbed a napkin, dabbing at the spill with quick, nervous movements. It's fine. I'll get you a fresh saucer. Really, it's fine. Ethan softened his tone. She looked like she might cry over spilled coffee, and he suddenly felt terrible for making her anxious. Thank you, Lena. She blinked, surprised he'd used her name. Then that practiced smile flickered into something more genuine before she hurried away. Ethan returned to his phone, scrolling through messages he'd answer later. His brother Brandon wanted to discuss the merger. His assistant needed signatures. Maya's school had sent another reminder about parent-teacher conferences. Everything could wait. Everything always waited. The bell above the door chimed. 2 men walked in, one older, maybe 70, wearing a threadbare military jacket with corporal stripes barely visible on the sleeve. The other was younger, 40-something, expensive suit, Rolex catching the fluorescent light. They couldn't have been more different. The older man shuffled toward a booth near the window, moving with the careful steps of someone whose joints hurt. The younger one followed, already talking on his phone, already annoyed. Ethan watched over the rim of his coffee cup. I don't have all morning, the suited man said, too loud, still on his phone. Yeah, I'm at some diner downtown. Meeting ran over. I'll be there in 20. The veteran sat down slowly, lowering himself into the cracked vinyl seat. He set a worn canvas bag on the floor beside him, everything he owned, probably. Ethan had seen that look before. The careful way homeless people moved, like they were apologizing for taking up space. Lena appeared with 2 menus. Good morning, gentlemen. Coffee to start? Just coffee, the veteran said quietly. His voice had gravel in it, years of hard living. Thank you, ma'am. The suited man didn't look up from his phone. Yeah, coffee, black, and make it quick. Lena nodded, scribbling on her pad even though there was nothing to write down. Another nervous habit. She disappeared toward the kitchen. Ethan should have looked away, should have minded his own business. But something about the veteran's face held his attention, a certain dignity despite the obvious poverty, a straightness in his posture that spoke of old discipline still ingrained. Lena returned with 2 mugs and the coffee pot. She filled both cups carefully, concentrating. Can I get you gentlemen anything to eat? Her voice was soft, almost apologetic for asking. The special's fine, the veteran said. And he hesitated. What's the cheapest thing on the breakfast menu? Lena's expression flickered. The special is actually our best deal today. 2 eggs, toast, hash browns, $4.95. I'll take that then. Thank you. The suited man was still on his phone, scrolling through emails now. He waved Lena off without speaking. Sir? Did you want to order? He glanced up, irritated. His eyes traveled over the veteran, then landed back on Lena with obvious impatience. No, just coffee. I'm not staying. Of course. Lena retreated. For about 90 seconds, there was peace. Then the veteran's hand shook as he lifted his coffee mug. Not much, just a slight tremor, but enough that when he set it down, some coffee sloshed onto the table. He pulled napkins from the dispenser, wiping it up quickly. Sorry, he muttered, to nobody in particular. The suited man looked over. His expression changed, disgust replacing mere impatience. Are you kidding me? The veteran's hand paused. Pardon? You're making a mess. This is Jesus. The younger man turned in his seat, looking for Lena. Excuse me? Waitress? Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Lena emerged from behind the counter, that nervous smile already in place. Yes, sir? Do you need... Yeah, I need you to ask this guy to leave. He gestured at the veteran without looking at him. I'm trying to have coffee in a clean establishment, and he's over here spilling things, and honestly, he smells like he hasn't showered in a month. The diner went silent. The cook visible through the kitchen window stopped moving. An elderly couple in the far booth looked over. Even the radio seemed to quiet. Lena stood very still, color draining from her already pale face. Sir, Look, I don't mean to be rude, but this is a business. You can't just let homeless people camp out in here. It's unsanitary. It's bad for... He's a customer, Lena said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the suited man's complaints. What? He's a customer. Lena's hands were shaking worse than before, but she didn't back down. He ordered food. He's sitting quietly. He's not bothering anyone. The suited man's face reddened. He's bothering me. The smell alone. Then perhaps you'd be more comfortable at a different table, sir. I can move you. I don't want to move. I want him to leave. Ethan had set down his phone. He was no longer pretending to read emails. The veteran started gathering his things, hands moving quickly despite their shaking. It's all right, ma'am. I'll go. Don't want any trouble. No. Lena's voice was stronger now. She turned to the veteran and Ethan saw her eyes glistening. Please don't. You ordered breakfast. You paid. You have every right to be here. Paid? The suited man laughed, harsh and cold. With what? Spare change he panhandled? This is ridiculous. Where's the manager? I'll get her. Lena's chin lifted slightly. But I should tell you, sir, that Maggie, the owner, she doesn't tolerate customers being cruel to other customers. She's thrown out people for less. Cruel? I'm being practical. This is a health code issue. It's a human dignity issue, Lena said. The words came out soft but firm, and Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in 3 years. A crack in the numbness. The suited man stood up, throwing a $5 bill on the table. This place is a dump anyway. You're a terrible waitress. You know that? Don't expect a tip. He stormed out. The door's bell chimed violently behind him. The silence that followed felt enormous. Lena stood there, breathing hard, her hands trembling so badly she had to clasp them together. The veteran stared at his coffee mug, looking miserable despite winning the confrontation. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't cause anything. Lena's voice cracked. She wiped at her eyes quickly. I'll get your breakfast. It'll be right out. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, movement stiff like she was holding herself together by sheer willpower. Ethan watched her disappear through the swinging doors. Then he looked at the veteran, who was staring out the window with an expression Ethan recognized. Shame. The kind that settles into your bones after the world tells you enough times that you don't matter. Something his wife Sarah used to say echoed in Ethan's mind. The measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable people. He'd built a fortune, employed thousands, donated millions to various causes that his PR team recommended. But when was the last time he'd actually seen someone the way Lena just saw this man? Not as a problem to be solved or a cause to be funded, but as a person deserving of dignity. The kitchen doors swung open. Lena emerged carrying a plate, eggs, hash browns, toast, even a side of bacon that definitely wasn't part of the $4.95 special. She set it down in front of the veteran gently. "Here you go. I added a little extra, no charge." The old man looked at the food, then at Lena. His eyes were wet. "You didn't have to do that, ma'am." "I know." She pulled out her order pad, wrote something, tore off the slip, and set it face down on the table. "Your meal's taken care of. Please, enjoy it." "But I have money. I can pay. I'm sure you do. Save it for your next meal." She touched his shoulder briefly, just a light pat. "Thank you for your service, sir." Then she walked away before he could argue, heading back behind the counter where she started wiping down surfaces that didn't need wiping. The veteran stared at his food for a long moment. Then he bowed his head, not in prayer exactly, just in acknowledgement of unexpected kindness, and began eating slowly, savoring each bite. Ethan sat motionless in his corner booth. He just witnessed something his money couldn't buy. Genuine compassion, the kind that costs something personal, that comes from someone who clearly had very little to give. Lena had probably just spent an hour's worth of tips on that breakfast, maybe more. She'd stood up to a customer, risked her job really, to defend a stranger's dignity. And she'd done it while terrified, her whole body shaking with fear or anger or both. His wife would have liked her. The thought came unbidden, and with it a wave of grief so sudden it stole his breath. Sarah would have marched right over to that table and sat down with the veteran, asked about his service, listened to his stories. She'd had that gift, making invisible people feel seen. God, he missed her. Ethan pulled out his phone, but not to check emails this time. He opened a different app, one he rarely used. Made a call. "James? It's Ethan. I need you to do something for me, right now." His head of security sounded surprised. "Of course, sir. What do you need?" "There's a veteran, early 70s, military jacket, sitting in Maggie's diner on 5th and Morrison. I want a full background check. Respectfully done, nothing invasive. Where he's staying, what he needs, if he has family. I want to know by this afternoon." "Understood. Anything else?" "Yes. Find out who owns this diner. I want details on their financial situation, any outstanding debts, property issues. Don't alarm anyone, just information. I'll have it within a few hours." "Thank you." Ethan ended the call and returned to watching Lena. She was pouring coffee for the elderly couple now, that practiced smile back in place. But he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she moved a little too carefully, like someone who'd been running on empty for a very long time. The veteran finished his meal. He pulled out a worn wallet, counted out exact change for the coffee, even though Lena had said it was covered, and left it on the table anyway. Then he picked up his canvas bag and walked to the counter where Lena was restocking napkin dispensers. "Ma'am?" She turned, and Ethan saw her smile become real again. "How was everything?" "Best breakfast I've had in 6 months." The veteran's voice was thick. "And I want you to know what you did back there, standing up for me. That meant something. That meant a lot. You didn't deserve to be treated that way." "Maybe not, but most people wouldn't have said anything." He paused. "I was a corporal in the Marines, 2 tours in Vietnam, and I've been down on my luck lately, but I'm still a person, you know?" "I know." Lena's eyes were wet again. "Thank you for your service, Corporal." Name's Robert Hayes." "Nice to meet you, Robert. I'm Lena." They shook hands, formal and dignified, and Ethan felt that crack in his chest widen a little more. Robert Hayes left, bell chiming behind him. Lena stood there for a moment, not moving. Then she wiped her eyes quickly with the back of her hand and returned to cleaning tables that were already clean. Ethan made a decision. He stood, left a $50 bill under his coffee cup, enough to cover his coffee about 20 times over, and walked toward the counter. Lena looked up, startled. "Oh, did you need your check?" "No, I'm all set. I just wanted to say something." She blinked, confused. "What you did earlier," Ethan said quietly. "Standing up for that man. That took courage." Color flooded her pale cheeks. "I didn't really do anything. You did more than most people would." He pulled a business card from his wallet. Plain white cardstock, just a phone number printed in simple black type. Nothing else. I'd like to talk to you about something, when you have time. Lena took the card like it might bite her. About what? A job opportunity. Different from this. I'm not really qualified for much. I didn't finish college and I've only worked service industry. The qualification I'm looking for isn't on a resume. Ethan glanced at where Robert Hayes had been sitting. Call that number, tomorrow if you can. Ask for me directly. Who are you? He smiled slightly. My name's on the card. It wasn't, just the number. But his assistant would know what to do. Lena looked down at the card, then back at Ethan. Suspicion and hope warred on her face. Is this real? Because if this is some kind of scam, it's real, I promise. He turned to leave, then paused. And Lena, don't let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness. It's the strongest thing a person can choose. He walked out before she could respond. The call came to Ethan's private office at 2:15 that afternoon. Sir, I have that information you requested. James sounded uncomfortable. Should I send the file, or would you prefer a verbal report? Verbal first. Robert Hayes, 72 years old, Marine Corps veteran, honorably discharged in 1974. Purple Heart recipient. He was a machinist for 30 years at Patterson Manufacturing until they shut down operations 18 months ago. Lost his pension in the bankruptcy. His wife died of cancer about a year ago. Medical bills wiped out their savings. He's been living in his car and occasionally at the shelter on 10th Street. No criminal record, no living family we could locate. Ethan closed his eyes. What does he need? Everything, sir. Housing, medical care. He's diabetic and hasn't been able to afford his medication consistently. He's looking for work, but most places won't hire someone his age, especially without a permanent address. Fix it. Sir? All of it. Find him housing, something decent, not charity case housing. Set up medical care through our corporate health plan. List him as a consultant if you need to justify it. Get him enrolled in our job placement program. And James? Yes, sir? Do it quietly. I don't want him to know where it's coming from. Make it look like veteran services or something through the city. He's a proud man. He won't accept what he thinks is charity. Understood. And the diner? What about it? Maggie's Diner is owned by Margaret Chen. She's 71, runs it herself with minimal staff. The building's been in her family for 40 years, but she's 3 months behind on property taxes and facing foreclosure. The bank's scheduled to auction the property next month. Ethan opened his laptop, began typing. How much does she owe? Total debt, including back taxes and building repairs? About $240,000, less than Ethan spent on his daughter's birthday party last year. Buy the debt, all of it. Have our legal team contact the bank and the city, get everything current, then transfer the building title to Margaret Chen, free and clear. Same conditions as Hayes. Make it anonymous. Maybe structure it as some small business relief program through the city. That's going to be difficult to hide, sir. She'll have questions. Then have good answers ready. But she keeps her diner, James. That's non-negotiable. Of course. I'll handle it personally. One more thing. The waitress, Lena Hart. I gave her my card. When she calls, put her through directly. Don't screen it. There was a pause. Sir, may I speak candidly? Always. What are you doing? Ethan looked out his office window at the city spread below him, all steel and glass and money. What was he doing? I'm not sure yet, he admitted, but I watched someone with almost nothing give away what little she had because it was the right thing to do. And I realized I've been going through the motions for 3 years, throwing money at problems from a distance, never actually seeing people anymore. Sarah would have been ashamed of me. Your wife would have been proud of the father you've become to Maya. I'm a part-time father at best. I'm home for breakfast if I'm lucky, maybe dinner twice a week. The rest of the time, I'm building an empire that doesn't need to get any bigger. Ethan's voice roughened. This morning I saw what Sarah always tried to show me, that the best parts of being human cost nothing except giving a damn about each other. James was quiet for a moment. I'll take care of everything, sir. Thank you. After hanging up, Ethan sat in his leather chair. His wife had hated this chair, said it looked like a throne. and thought about Lena Hart's trembling hands and fierce eyes. Would she call? Maybe not. Maybe she'd think it was too strange, some random man in a diner offering mysterious jobs. Maybe she'd throw the card away. But he hoped she wouldn't, because for the first time since Sarah's death, Ethan felt something other than numbness, a small spark of purpose that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or market share. He wanted to know what happened to people like Lena when someone actually gave them a chance. Not charity, not pity. Just an opportunity to show what they could do. His daughter's face flashed through his mind, Maya at the breakfast table that morning, quietly eating cereal, not talking much. She was only 8, but already learning to be silent around him, already absorbing his emotional distance as normal. What kind of man was he becoming? What was he teaching her about how to treat people? The intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice. "Mr. Cole, your brother's here for the 3 o'clock. Ethan sighed. Brandon. The merger discussion he'd been avoiding. Send him in. The door opened and Brandon Cole entered like he owned the place. Which, to be fair, he partially did. Younger by 4 years, Brandon had the same sharp features as Ethan, but none of the restraint. Where Ethan had learned to hide behind stillness, Brandon broadcast every emotion across his face. Right now, impatience and annoyance. "You've been dodging my calls." Brandon dropped into a chair without being invited to sit. "We need to make a decision on the Hastings merger by Friday." "I'm not dodging. I'm busy." "Doing what?" "You delegated most of the operational stuff months ago. What's keeping you so occupied?" "Defending homeless veterans in diners," Ethan thought but didn't say. "Personal matters. How's the merger looking?" Brandon launched into numbers and projections, market analysis, and competitor positioning. Ethan listened with half his attention, nodding at appropriate moments. Brandon loved this part, the strategy, the competition, the win. He'd make a good CEO someday. Maybe he'd make a better one than Ethan. The thought was disloyal, but persistent. "So if we move fast, we can lock this down before Meridian even knows what hit them. Ethan, are you listening?" Every word. Move fast. Lock it down. Crush Meridian. Brandon's eyes narrowed. "What's wrong with you lately? Ever since Sarah died, you've been careful." "Distant," Brandon finished, not carefully at all. "You're distant. You're going through motions. The board's starting to notice." "The board can notice whatever they want. Our numbers are strong." "Numbers aren't everything. Leadership is about presence, about..." "About what, Brandon? About being ruthless? About winning at all costs?" Ethan felt his temper rising, unusual and unwelcome. "Is that what you think this is?" "I think this is business, and I think you're losing your edge." They stared at each other across the desk. Finally, Brandon looked away first, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm not trying to fight with you. I'm worried. You're my brother. Since Sarah, you're different. Maya needs you present, not just physically there." "I know what my daughter needs." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're raising her the way Dad raised us. Distant, emotionally unavailable, just going through the motions of being a parent." The words hit harder than Brandon probably intended. Their father had been exactly that, present but absent, providing everything except actual connection. Ethan had sworn he'd be different, and then Sarah died and he'd become exactly what he'd feared. "The merger's fine," Ethan said quietly. "Do it. You have my approval." "Just like that?" "You've done the work. You know it better than me right now. Make the call." Brandon studied him. "What happened to you today?" "Nothing happened." "You're lying. I've known you for 36 years. Something shifted." Ethan thought about telling him. About Lena and Robert Hayes and the moment in that rundown diner when he'd felt something crack open inside his chest. But Brandon wouldn't understand. He'd see it as weakness, as sentiment interfering with business. He'd been shaped by their father's worldview. People were assets or liabilities, opportunities or threats. Kindness was a strategy, not a value. "Go handle the merger," Ethan said instead. "And Brandon? Thank you for caring. I know I haven't made it easy." His brother looked surprised by the sincerity, then uncomfortable, like genuine emotion made him itchy. "Yeah, well, someone has to keep you functional." He stood. "I'm taking Maya to the park Saturday if you're busy. She asked me last week." Guilt twisted in Ethan's stomach. "I'm not busy Saturday." I'll take her. You sure? Because you said that last month and then I'll be there. I promise. Brandon nodded slowly. Okay, good. After he left, Ethan sat in the silence of his office, thinking about promises and presents and all the ways he'd been failing the people who mattered most. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya's nanny. She wants to know if you'll be home for dinner? He typed back, Yes. Tell her I'll be home by 6. We can cook together. The response came quickly. She'll be excited. She misses you. 3 words that broke his heart. Ethan looked at the cityscape outside his window, all that glass and steel built on the backs of people like Robert Hayes and Lena Hart, people who actually worked with their hands, who struggled and survived and still somehow found the capacity for kindness. When had he last done something kind just because it mattered? The question followed him out of the office, into his car, through traffic toward the penthouse where his daughter waited. And somewhere across the city, in a tiny apartment he'd never seen, Lena Hart stared at a business card with just a phone number and wondered if courage looked like making one simple call. Lena stared at the business card for 3 days before she found the nerve to call. It sat on her nightstand next to the bottle of her mother's pain medication, a small white rectangle that might as well have been a winning lottery ticket or a ticking bomb. She wasn't sure which. Every morning she'd pick it up, run her thumb over the embossed numbers, then set it back down and go to work. By Friday, her mother noticed. What's that you keep looking at? Carol Hart's voice was weak, roughened by the lung disease that had been slowly stealing her breath for 2 years. Lena sat on the edge of her mother's bed in their cramped apartment, helping her sit up for her medication. Nothing, Mom. Just a phone number. Must be some number if you've been staring at it all week. Carol's breathing was labored even from that small movement. Is it a boy? Despite everything, Lena smiled. No, it's a job thing. Maybe. I don't know. You don't know? This man came into the diner. He saw me help someone, and he gave me his card, said there was an opportunity. Lena shook her head. It's probably nothing, probably weird. Or probably something. Her mother took the pill Lena offered, swallowing it with difficulty. What do you have to lose by calling? Everything, Lena thought. The fragile stability they'd built. The careful routine that kept them afloat, even if they were barely treading water. One phone call could crack it all open, but her mother was looking at her with those eyes that had watched Lena sacrifice everything. College, her art, any chance at a real future, to keep them both alive. Those eyes that held guilt and gratitude and hope all tangled together. I'll think about it, Lena said. That afternoon at the diner, Maggie called her into the back office during her break. Sit down, honey. Maggie Chen was 71, but moved like she was 50. All efficient energy and no-nonsense warmth. She'd owned the diner for 40 years and employed Lena for the last 6. Right now, she looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. What's wrong? Lena asked. Lena, nothing's wrong. Something's right, actually, and I can't figure it out. Maggie pulled out a stack of papers, official-looking documents with city seals. You remember how I told you we were behind on property taxes? How the bank was threatening foreclosure? Lena's stomach dropped. Did they? No, opposite. Someone paid it off. All of it. The taxes, the bank loan, everything. And they transferred the building deed to me free and clear. No mortgage. Nothing. For a moment, Lena couldn't process the words. What? Who? That's what I can't figure out. The lawyers say it came through some small business relief program through the city, but I called every contact I have in city government and nobody knows anything about it. The money just appeared and made everything go away. Maggie's eyes were wet. 40 years I've been fighting to keep this place, and suddenly I own it outright. That's incredible, Maggie. It's suspicious is what it is. People don't just give away $250,000 for nothing. But Maggie was smiling despite her words. Still, I'm not looking gift horses in the mouth. We're safe. The diner's safe. I wanted you to know. Lena hugged her, feeling the older woman's fragile bones beneath her clothes. When had Maggie gotten so thin? I'm so happy for you, Lena whispered. For us, honey. This is your place, too. After her shift ended, Lena walked home through the cold evening, thinking about impossible gifts and mysterious benefactors. The timing seemed too convenient. Right after that incident with Robert Hayes, right after the stranger in the corner booth had given her his card. Could it be connected? No, that was crazy. Why would some random customer pay off a diner's debts? It didn't make sense. But then again, nothing about that morning made sense. The way he'd watched her, the way he'd spoken about kindness like it mattered more than money, the business card with nothing but a phone number. She pulled it from her pocket as she climbed the stairs to their third-floor apartment. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she'd call. But when tomorrow came, her mother couldn't breathe. Lena found her at 6 in the morning, gasping for air, lips tinged blue. The ambulance took 12 minutes to arrive, 12 minutes of Lena holding her mother's hand and trying not to let terror show on her face. "You're okay, Mom. You're going to be okay." Carol couldn't speak, could barely nod. At the hospital, the doctor was a young woman with kind eyes and devastating news. Her lung capacity is down to 32%. We can admit her, make her comfortable, but without more aggressive treatment. She trailed off, letting the silence finish the sentence. What kind of treatment? Lena's voice sounded distant, not her own. A transplant would be ideal, but the waiting lists are years long. And honestly, given her overall health, the doctor hesitated. There are newer therapies available, experimental treatments that have shown promise, but they're not covered by Medicaid and the costs. How much? For the full course, probably 60, 70,000, minimum. The number hit Lena like a physical blow. She made $22,000 a year at the diner. After rent and her mother's current medications, she had maybe $200 in savings. "I can't afford that." "I know. I'm sorry." The doctor touched her shoulder. "We'll keep her stable, manage her pain. But Lena, you need to start thinking about quality of life versus prolonging—" "Don't!" Lena pulled away. "Don't tell me to let her die, please." "I'm not. I'm just being realistic about options." After the doctor left, Lena sat beside her mother's hospital bed and cried as quietly as she could. Carol was sleeping, sedated, breathing easier with the oxygen support. But Lena could see how fragile she'd become, how the illness had whittled her down to almost nothing. She pulled out her phone, stared at it. Then she dialed the number on the business card before she could change her mind. It rang twice. "Ethan Cole's office." A woman's voice, professional and warm. Lena almost hung up. Ethan Cole. Why did that name sound familiar? "Hello? Is anyone there?" Yes. Sorry. My name is Lena Hart. Someone gave me this number and said to call Ms. Hart. Yes, Mr. Cole has been expecting your call. Please hold." Before Lena could respond, gentle music filled the line. She sat there in the hospital corridor, confused and overwhelmed, while doctors and nurses moved past her in their own urgent rhythms. The music cut off. "Lena." The voice was the same as the man from the diner, calm, steady. "I'm glad you called." "I don't understand what's happening." "I know. I'm sorry for the mystery. I wanted to talk to you about a position at my foundation. Are you able to meet this week?" Lena looked through the window at her mother's sleeping form. My mother's in the hospital. I don't know when I can—" "Which hospital?" "What?" "Which hospital is she at?" "Mercy General, but I don't see what—" "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Wait for me in the main lobby." "Mr. Cole, you don't have to—" "I know I don't have to. I want to. 20 minutes, Lena." He hung up. Lena stared at her phone, trying to understand what had just happened. Who was this man, and why did he care about her mother? She Googled his name while she waited. The results made her hands shake. Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Financial Group, net worth estimated at $3 billion, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, recently widowed, daughter named Maya, reclusive, rarely photographed, known for aggressive business tactics and massive charitable donations. The man who'd sat in her diner wearing a worn coat and drinking coffee like a regular person was a billionaire. Lena felt sick. This had to be some kind of joke. Or worse, some kind of weird rich person game. Maybe he got off on finding struggling people and dangling hope in front of them before yanking it away. She should leave. Should go back to her mother's room and forget this ever happened. But $60,000, the experimental treatment, a chance. Lena went down to the lobby and waited. Exactly 18 minutes later, Ethan Cole walked through the hospital doors. He looked different in daylight, in expensive clothes that fit properly, taller somehow, more commanding. But his eyes were the same, sharp and sad and searching. Lena. She stood up, suddenly aware of how she must look. Her diner uniform wrinkled from sleeping in the waiting room, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, eyes red from crying. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, because she didn't know what else to say. "How's your mother?" "Stable, for now." Lena wrapped her arms around herself. "Mr. Cole, I don't understand what's happening. Why are you here? What do you want from me?" "Let's sit." He gestured to the chairs. "And please, call me Ethan." They sat. Around them, the hospital moved through its daily chaos. Visitors and patients, doctors and grief. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm going to be direct because you deserve that. I run a foundation that focuses on veteran services and family support programs. We do good work, but it's become impersonal, distant. My team writes checks and issues grants, but we've lost touch with the people we're supposed to be helping." "Okay," Lena said slowly. "What I saw in the diner, the way you treated that veteran, the way you stood up for his dignity, that's what's missing in my foundation. That human connection, that understanding of what it means to have nothing and still choose kindness. So you want to hire me to, what? Be kind to people?" A small smile crossed his face. "In a way, yes. I want you to help redesign our outreach programs, to make sure the people we're helping are actually seen as people, not just statistics in grant applications." Lena laughed, but it came out bitter. "I'm a waitress. I didn't finish college. I have no experience with nonprofits or foundations or whatever. You could hire 100 people more qualified than me. Qualified isn't the same as right, and you're wrong about your experience. You've been helping people survive for years. You just weren't getting paid for it." The words hit too close to something true. Lena looked away. "What happened to your mother?" Ethan asked quietly. "Chronic lung disease. It's been getting worse. The doctor said there are new treatments, but they're experimental and expensive," and her voice cracked. "I can't afford to save her." "What if you could?" Lena's head snapped up. "What?" "The position I'm offering comes with full health benefits, comprehensive coverage that extends to immediate family members, including experimental treatments." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "You're bribing me. I'm offering you a job with benefits that could help your mother. There's a difference." "Is there?" Lena stood up, anger flaring hot in her chest. "You swoop in like some kind of savior, offering exactly what I need at the exact moment I'm desperate. How is that not manipulation?" Ethan stood too, but he didn't move closer. "You're right to be suspicious. If I were in your position, I'd be suspicious too. But Lena, I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to do something good in a way that actually matters." "Why me? Out of everyone you could help, why a random waitress?" "Because you reminded me of someone I lost. Because you showed me that the best parts of being human have nothing to do with money or power." His voice dropped. "And because I'm tired of going through the motions of a life that stopped feeling real 3 years ago." The raw honesty in his words caught Lena off guard. She saw past the expensive suit to the man underneath, someone as lost as she was, just in different ways. "I need to think about this," she said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Ethan pulled out another card, this one with actual information printed on it. "My direct number is on there. When you're ready to talk, call me." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I've already asked my insurance team to look into your mother's case. If you decide not to take the job, that doesn't change. She'll get the treatment she needs regardless." "Why would you do that?" "Because she raised someone who stands up for strangers in diners. That means she matters." He met her eyes. "And because I can. Sometimes it really is that simple." Then he left, walking out through the automatic doors into the cold afternoon. Lena stood in the lobby for a long time, holding 2 business cards and trying to understand if she'd just been offered salvation or sold her soul. 2 days later, she called him back. "I'll meet with you, but I'm not promising anything." "Fair enough. When works for you?" "I have a shift tomorrow morning, but I'm off at 2. I'll send a car to pick you up at the diner. We can talk at my office." "I can take the bus. Lena, let me send a car, please." She agreed because arguing seemed exhausting. The next day, a sleek black car pulled up outside Maggie's diner at exactly 2 o'clock. The driver opened the door for her, and Lena climbed in feeling like she was in a movie where she didn't know her lines. The drive took 20 minutes through downtown, ending at a glass tower that seemed to scrape the sky. Cole Financial Group was etched in steel letters above the entrance. Lena's hands started shaking again. The driver opened her door. "Ms. Hart, they're expecting you on the 42nd floor." She wanted to run. Instead, she walked through doors that whispered open automatically, into a lobby of marble and steel and money. The security guard checked her ID, made a call, then directed her to a private elevator. "Top floor," he said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The elevator was faster than seemed possible. Lena's ears popped as it climbed. When the doors opened, she stepped into a reception area that looked like something from a magazine. "Miss Hart!" A woman in her 50s approached, hand extended. "I'm Rebecca, Mr. Cole's executive assistant. He's just finishing a call. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you." "Please have a seat. He'll be with you shortly." Lena sat on a leather couch that probably cost more than her car and tried not to feel like she was drowning. Around her, people moved with purpose. Executives in suits, assistants carrying tablets, everyone looking important and competent and nothing like her. What was she doing here? "Lena," she looked up. Ethan stood in a doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. "Come on in." His office was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. A desk that could double as a dining table. Bookshelves lined with titles she'd never read. And in the corner, slightly out of place, a child's drawing stuck to the wall with tape. Ethan caught her looking at it. "My daughter Maya. She drew it last month." The picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands. A tall one, a small one, and a medium one with yellow hair. "She wants a new mom," Ethan said quietly. "Keeps drawing pictures of our family with an extra person. Different hair color each time, like she's trying out options." The vulnerability in his voice made Lena's chest ache. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you." He gestured to the chairs by the window. "Please, sit. This will be more comfortable than the formal desk thing." They sat. The city sprawled below them, all those people living their lives, unaware of this strange meeting 42 floors above them. "Before we talk about the job, I need to tell you something," Ethan said. "Your mother's treatment has been approved. She'll start the experimental therapy next week." Lena's breath caught. "How?" "Our company health plan covers it. I had our insurance team expedite the paperwork. But I haven't even accepted the job." "I know. So you're just giving this to me? For free?" "Nothing's free. I'm asking you to consider a position that could change your life. You're asking me to prove I'm serious about wanting to do good, not just talk about it." Ethan leaned back. "Consider it proof." Lena didn't know whether to cry or scream. "This is insane." "Probably. My brother thinks I've lost my mind." A wry smile. "He might be right." "Tell me about the job. The real job, not the sales pitch." For the next hour, Ethan outlined his vision. The foundation had millions in funding, but lacked soul. He wanted to rebuild it from the ground up, focusing on veterans first, but eventually expanding to single parents, homeless families, anyone falling through society's cracks. "I need someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who won't treat our beneficiaries like charity cases or projects." He looked at her directly. "I need someone with your heart, Lena, the experience and skills we can teach, the compassion that's either there or it isn't." What would I actually do? Help design programs. Meet with the people we're trying to help. Make sure we're actually addressing real needs instead of just throwing money at problems. Work with our team to build something that matters. I don't know anything about running programs or working with teams or... You'll learn. We'll give you training, support, whatever you need. Ethan paused. "But I won't lie to you. It'll be hard. You'll be working with people who don't think you belong here, who'll question every decision you make because you came from a diner instead of an Ivy League school." Sounds terrible. It will be, sometimes, but it'll also be the chance to help hundreds of people like Robert Hayes, like your mother, like everyone you've ever watched struggle while the world looked away. Lena stared out at the city, thinking about all the small kindnesses that had kept her afloat over the years. The neighbor who'd helped with her mother's medicine when Lena was short on cash, Maggie giving her extra shifts when rent was due, The free clinic doctor who'd spent an hour explaining treatment options even though they were overbooked. What if she could be that for other people? What if she could take everything she'd learned from barely surviving and turn it into actually helping? I need to know something, she said, and I need you to tell me the truth. Okay. Is this really about the foundation? Or is this about you trying to save some project to make yourself feel better about your wife dying? The question hung between them, brutal and necessary. Ethan didn't flinch. Both. I am trying to find meaning in something that took all the meaning out of my life. I am trying to be the person Sarah would have wanted me to be. And yes, part of that is selfish. I need to do this for me as much as for anyone else. He met her eyes. But that doesn't make it less real. It doesn't mean the help won't matter. What if I fail? What if I take this job and I'm terrible at it? Then we'll figure it out together. I'm not looking for perfection, Lena. I'm looking for someone who gives a damn. She thought about her mother in that hospital bed. Thought about Robert Hayes eating breakfast with tears in his eyes. Thought about every person she'd ever watched the world ignore. Okay, she said. I'll try. The smile that crossed Ethan's face was genuine and a little surprised, like he hadn't actually believed she'd say yes. Really? Really. But I have conditions. Name them. I keep working at the diner 2 days a week. Maggie needs the help and I need to stay grounded in where I came from. Lena lifted her chin. And if I think something's wrong or wasteful or not actually helping people, I get to say so, even if it makes me unpopular. Especially if it makes you unpopular. Deal. They shook hands, and Lena felt like she'd just jumped off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. When do I start? Monday, if that works. Rebecca will get you set up with HR, help you through all the paperwork and orientation. Ethan stood. And Lena, thank you for taking a chance on this. Thank you for giving me one. As she rode the elevator back down, Lena called her mother's hospital room. Mom, it's me. I have something to tell you. Please tell me you took that job. How did you know? Her mother's laugh was weak but warm. Because I raised you to be brave, baby girl. Even when you're terrified. Lena's eyes burned. I'm so scared, Mom. I know, but you're going to be amazing. That night, Lena stood in her tiny apartment and looked at the half-finished paintings stacked against the wall, dreams she'd abandoned to pay bills and keep them both alive. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to dream again. But first, she had to survive meeting Ethan's brother. Brandon Cole was waiting in her new office Monday morning. He was sitting in her chair. Lena stopped in the doorway of the small office Rebecca had shown her Friday afternoon during orientation. It wasn't much, 10th floor, interior view, barely enough room for a desk and 2 chairs, but it had been hers. For 3 whole days, she'd imagined what it would feel like to work here, to have a space that wasn't sticky with grease and didn't smell like burnt coffee. Now Brandon Cole sat behind her desk, feet propped up, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place, which, technically, he partially did. You're Lena. Not a question. He didn't look up. I am, and you're in my chair. That got his attention. His eyes flicked up, same sharp features as Ethan, but harder somehow, meaner around the edges. Your chair, he smiled without warmth. Right, the waitress who's going to revolutionize our foundation. Lena felt her stomach clench but kept her voice steady. I'm going to try. Can I have my chair back? Brandon studied her for a long moment, then swung his feet down and stood. He was taller than Ethan, broader, used his size like a weapon. Sure, it's all yours. He moved to the visitor's chair, sprawling in it like he was doing her a favor by sitting at all. I wanted to introduce myself before you got too comfortable. That's thoughtful. Lena set her bag down, didn't sit. Standing felt safer. I'm Ethan's brother. I run operations for Cole Financial, which means I also have oversight on foundation expenditures since we fund it. Okay? I want to be clear about something. Brandon leaned forward. I don't know what story you sold my brother, but I've seen women like you before. Pretty, humble, perfect sob story. You find a lonely rich man and you squeeze. Heat flooded Lena's face. Excuse me? You heard me. Ethan's vulnerable right now. His wife died, he's raising a kid alone, he's looking for meaning in all the wrong places. And you saw an opportunity. That's not... Let me finish. His voice went cold. I don't care what your game is. Gold digger, con artist, whatever. But if you hurt my brother or my niece, I will destroy you. I will dig up every mistake you've ever made, every debt, every secret, and I will bury you so deep you'll wish you'd stayed behind that diner counter. Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her sides. Are you done? For now, good. Because you don't know anything about me. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. I didn't ask for this job. I didn't seek out your brother. He came to me. And yeah, I have a sob story. My mom's dying and we're broke, and I've been working myself into the ground trying to keep us both alive. But that doesn't make me a con artist. It makes me desperate. There's a difference. Brandon's expression didn't change. Is there? Yes. Because I actually care about the work Ethan wants to do. I care about helping people who've been forgotten. And I know I'm not qualified for this job. I know everyone here thinks I don't belong. But I'm going to try anyway because maybe, just maybe, I can make a difference for someone like me. How inspiring. Brandon stood. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to do this job, collect your paycheck, help your mom. Fine, but you stay away from Ethan personally. You don't get close to Maya. You keep this professional. I don't have any interest in, I don't care what you claim your interests are. I'm telling you the rules. He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. And Lena? I'm going to be watching everything you do. Every expense report, every program proposal, every conversation. One mistake and you're gone. He left before she could respond. Lena sank into her chair that still felt like someone else's, and put her head in her hands. She wanted to cry but refused to give Brandon the satisfaction, even though he wasn't there to see it. That bad, huh? She looked up. A woman stood in the doorway, early 40s, black, wearing a blazer and an expression of sympathy. I'm Diana Ross. No, not that Diana Ross. Trust me, I've heard every joke. She came in without being invited, sat in the visitor's chair. I run program development for the foundation, which means we'll be working together. Lena Hart. I know, the whole building knows. Ethan's mysterious new hire that nobody understands. Diana's smile was kind. I also know Brandon just gave you his "stay away from my family" speech. He cornered me in the parking garage when I started 5 years ago. He did? Oh yeah, apparently I was too young and too friendly and clearly after Ethan's money. Diana laughed. Never mind that I'm happily married with 3 kids and Ethan's not remotely my type. Brandon sees threats everywhere. Lena felt some of the tension ease from her shoulders. So it's not just me? Definitely not just you. Though I'll be honest, you're getting it worse because you came from outside the corporate world. Brandon thinks that makes you dangerous. I'm a waitress. I'm the least dangerous person alive. You made Ethan feel something again. That's terrifying to someone like Brandon. Diana leaned back. Look, I'm not going to pretend this will be easy. A lot of people here think you got this job because Ethan felt sorry for you. They're going to test you, undermine you, wait for you to fail. That's reassuring. But some of us are actually glad you're here. The foundation's been running on autopilot for too long. We need someone who remembers what it's like to need help, not just give it. Diana pulled out her phone. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you everything I know about program development. You're going to teach me how to actually connect with the people we're serving. Deal? Lena felt tears threatening for a different reason now. Deal. They spent the next 4 hours going through existing foundation programs. Diana was patient, explaining the bureaucracy and budgets without making Lena feel stupid for asking basic questions. Our biggest initiative right now is the Veterans Housing Program, Diana said, pulling up spreadsheets. We've placed about 200 vets in apartments over the last 3 years. That's amazing. It's something, but the retention rate is terrible. 60% are homeless again within 18 months. Lena frowned. Why? Lots of reasons. Mental health issues, addiction, difficulty adjusting to civilian life. We give them housing, but not support. Diana sighed. It's like handing someone a fish instead of teaching them to fish, you know? What if we did both? How? Lena thought about Robert Hayes, about the way he'd moved through that diner like he was apologizing for existing. What if housing was just the start? What if we paired people with mentors, helped them find jobs, connected them to mental health services, made it about rebuilding their whole life, not just putting a roof over their head. Diana was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. See? This is why we need you. That's a good idea, Lena. Really? Really? It'll be expensive and complicated, and Brandon will probably fight it, but it's good. They worked through lunch, ordering sandwiches and eating at Lena's tiny desk while building out a proposal. Diana had the technical knowledge. Lena had the instinct for what people actually needed. Together, they started creating something that felt real. Around 3, Ethan appeared in the doorway. "How's your first day going?" Lena looked up, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look. Hair falling out of its ponytail, mayo on her sleeve from lunch. "Good. Diana's been incredible." Diana usually is. Ethan smiled at them both. "Can I steal Lena for a few minutes?" Diana gathered her papers. "I should get back to my office anyway. Lena, let's meet again Wednesday and keep working on this." After she left, Ethan sat in the vacated chair. "I heard Brandon ambushed you this morning." "Word travels fast. Rebecca saw him leaving your office. She knows that look." Ethan rubbed his face tiredly. "I'm sorry, I should have warned you he'd pull something like that." "It's fine. I can handle it." "You shouldn't have to. He's my brother, my problem." Ethan looked out the small window at the building across the street. "Brandon thinks he's protecting me. He's been doing it since we were kids, stepping in front of anything that might hurt me. It's just gotten more aggressive since Sarah died. He thinks I'm after your money. He thinks everyone's after something. It's how he sees the world." Ethan met her eyes. "But I don't. And I need you to know that. Whatever Brandon says, whatever he implies, I asked you here because I believe in what you can do, not because I pity you." "Okay. Is it? Okay." Lena considered lying, then decided he deserved honesty. "Not really. Everyone here looks at me like I'm some charity case who stumbled into a job she doesn't deserve. Diana's been great, but I can feel the others watching, waiting for me to mess up, and your brother basically threatened to destroy my life." "Do you want to quit?" The question surprised her. "What? No." "Then what do you need? How can I make this actually work for you?" Lena thought about it. "Time? And space. Let me prove myself without everyone treating me like your pet project." "Fair enough." Ethan stood. "For what it's worth, I think you're going to be amazing at this, even if it doesn't feel that way right now." After he left, Lena sat alone in her small office and let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down. Fear, anger, a weird, desperate hope that maybe she could actually do this. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother's nurse. "Carol's asking when you'll visit. Treatment starts tomorrow." Tomorrow. The experimental therapy that might save her mother's life. The treatment Lena could never have afforded without this job, without Ethan's impossible generosity. She texted back, "I'll be there after work." The next 3 weeks blurred together in an exhausting routine. Mornings at the foundation learning everything she could from Diana and the other program managers. Afternoons visiting her mother at the hospital, watching the treatments make her sicker before hopefully making her better. 2 evenings a week pulling shifts at Maggie's because she'd promised, and because something about pouring coffee kept her grounded. Her mother's hair fell out. Her skin turned the color of old paper. But the doctor said the treatment was working, that her lung function was improving slowly. "You look tired, baby," Carol said one evening, her voice thin but clearer than it had been in months. "I'm fine, Mom." "You're running yourself ragged. You don't have to keep working at the diner. That job at the foundation?" "I want to keep working at the diner. I need to." Lena adjusted her mother's blankets. "Besides, I like Maggie. She's family." "So is sleep. When's the last time you got 8 hours?" Lena couldn't remember. At the foundation, she and Diana had finished the proposal for the expanded veterans program. They'd called it Homecoming, a full-service initiative that would provide housing plus job training, mental health support, and community integration services. The budget was significant. The logistics were complicated, but Lena believed in it with everything she had. "We present to the board next week," Diana told her. "You'll need to be there." "Me? I thought you'd present it?" "We built it together. We present together." Diana looked at her seriously. "You ready for that? Because Brandon sits on the board. He's going to come at you hard." "I'm ready." She wasn't ready. The boardroom was on the 42nd floor, all dark wood and leather chairs and windows overlooking the city. 12 people sat around a massive table, executives, lawyers, foundation trustees. And Brandon, watching Lena with cold calculation. Ethan sat at the head of the table. Everyone, this is Lena Hart, our new program director. She and Diana have a proposal for us. Diana set up the presentation while Lena tried to control her shaking hands. She'd practiced for hours, knew every number and talking point. But standing here in front of these people who all looked like they belonged in rooms like this, she felt like a fraud. Good morning, Diana began. We're here to present Homecoming, a comprehensive support program for homeless veterans. She walked through the statistics. 200 placements, 60% failure rate, the cost of repeated interventions versus long-term support. Then it was Lena's turn. She stood on legs that felt made of water. I met a veteran a few weeks ago. His name is Robert Hayes. He's 72, Purple Heart recipient, worked as a machinist for 30 years before his company went under. He'd lost everything, his pension, his wife, his home. But he still had his dignity. The room was silent. When someone tried to throw him out of a diner for being homeless, I watched him start to leave without fighting back. Because that's what happens when the world tells you enough times that you don't matter. You start to believe it. Lena's voice grew stronger. Homecoming isn't just about housing. It's about telling people like Robert that they do matter. That we see them as whole human beings worthy of investment, not just problems to warehouse. She clicked to the next slide, showing the full program structure. We're proposing to start with 50 veterans in the first year. Each one gets housing, a case manager, mental health support, job training, and connection to community resources. It's expensive, about $40,000 per person annually. But if it works, if we can get even 75% of them stable and independent, we'll have changed 50 lives completely. Brandon's voice cut through the room. $40,000 per person, $2 million budget for 50 people. That's fiscally irresponsible. It's investment, Lena said. The current model costs less per person, but fails more than half the time. We end up spending money over and over helping the same people because we're not actually solving the problem. You've been here 3 weeks, and you think you understand our financial models better than... I understand what it's like to fall through the cracks. Lena met his eyes. I understand that cheap solutions feel good on paper but don't actually work. And I understand that if we're going to call ourselves a foundation that helps people, we should actually help them, not just move them around like chess pieces on a spreadsheet. Someone at the table, a woman Lena didn't recognize, laughed quietly. Brandon's jaw tightened. This is exactly what I was worried about. Emotional appeals instead of sound business practice. We can't run a foundation on feelings. But we can't run it without them either, Diana interjected. Brandon, look at the research. Comprehensive support programs have success rates 3 times higher than housing-only initiatives. This isn't just Lena's feelings. It's evidence-based. Evidence from where? What comparable programs have these results? Diana pulled up another slide showing data from similar initiatives in 3 other cities. Lena watched Brandon's expression shift from dismissive to grudgingly interested. They spent the next hour debating details: budget allocation, timeline, success metrics. Ethan mostly stayed quiet, letting the board argue it out. But Lena caught him watching her a few times, something approving in his expression. Finally, he spoke. Let's vote. All in favor of approving Homecoming as a pilot program with a $2 million annual budget? 8 hands went up. 3 stayed down, including Brandon's. Motion carries? Ethan looked at Lena and Diana. Congratulations, you've got your program. After the meeting, Lena practically ran to the bathroom and threw up from stress. Diana found her there 10 minutes later. You okay? I just pitched a $2 million program to a boardroom full of executives. I'm amazing. Lena rinsed her mouth. Does it get easier? Not really. You just get better at hiding the terror. Diana hugged her. But you did great in there. Even Brandon couldn't completely tear it down. He voted against it. He votes against everything that wasn't his idea. Don't take it personally. But Lena did take it personally. She took all of it personally. The looks from other foundation staff who thought she'd gotten her job through sympathy. The whispers when she walked past. The way people explained basic concepts like she was stupid. She threw herself into Homecoming like it was the only thing keeping her afloat. Because in a way, it was. Diana helped her set up the infrastructure, hiring case managers, establishing partnerships with mental health clinics and job training programs, finding apartments that would work with their budget. It was exhausting and complicated and nothing like serving coffee, but it mattered. That's what Lena held on to during the long days when her imposter syndrome screamed that she had no idea what she was doing. Robert Hayes was their first participant. Lena found him at the shelter, sitting on a cot reading a worn paperback. He looked up when she approached, and recognition flickered across his face. The girl from the diner. Lena, do you remember me? Of course I do. You're the one who stood up for me. He stood slowly, joints creaking. What are you doing here? I work for a foundation now. We have a program that helps veterans get back on their feet. Housing, job support, whatever you need. Lena held out a folder. I was hoping you'd be interested. Robert took the folder, but didn't open it. What's the catch? No catch. We help you find stable housing and employment. You work with a case manager, follow the program requirements. That's it. Why me? Because you deserve it, and because you reminded me why this work matters. Lena smiled. Will you at least look at the paperwork? He did. And 3 days later, Robert Hayes became Homecoming's first success story, even though the success was still theoretical, still fragile as new ice. They found him a small apartment in a quiet building. Got him enrolled in therapy for PTSD he'd been carrying since Vietnam. Connected him with a machinist training program, updating his skills for modern equipment. Lena visited him every week, officially as program director, but really because she cared. She brought groceries when his disability check ran short, sat with him when the nightmares got bad, helped him fill out job applications. You don't have to do all this, Robert said one afternoon while they drank coffee in his sparse living room. I know, I want to. Why? I'm just some old vet you met once. You're Robert Hayes, Purple Heart recipient, skilled machinist, someone who maintained his dignity when the world tried to strip it away. Lena set down her mug. And you're my friend. Friends help each other. His eyes got wet. I haven't had a friend in a long time. Well, you've got one now. Over the next month, they enrolled 12 more veterans in Homecoming. Each one had their own story, their own struggles. Lena learned their names, their histories, what they needed to feel human again. She also learned how much harder it was to actually help people than to just feel sorry for them. The sleepless nights worrying about Michael, who'd relapsed and missed his therapy appointment. The frustration when David couldn't hold a job because his PTSD made crowds unbearable. The heartbreak when Sarah, yes, she'd been named Sarah too, decided the program wasn't worth the effort and disappeared back to the streets. Diana found Lena crying in her office after Sarah left. You can't save everyone. I know, but I should be able to save someone who wants to be saved. She wasn't ready. That's not your failure. Diana sat beside her. This work will break your heart over and over. You have to decide if it's worth it. Is it? For you? Diana thought about it. Yeah, because for every Sarah who isn't ready, there's a Robert who is. And those victories, they matter more than the losses hurt. Lena wanted to believe that. At home, her mother was getting better. Slowly, painfully, but better. Her oxygen levels were improving. She could walk to the bathroom without gasping. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. You saved my life, Carol said one evening. The treatment saved your life. You got me the treatment. You took that terrifying job with all those people who don't think you belong. You did that for me. I did it for us, Mom. And she was starting to believe she'd done it for herself too. Because despite the imposter syndrome and the stress and Brandon's cold disapproval, Lena was good at this work. She understood how to talk to people who'd been ignored, how to build programs that actually addressed real needs instead of checking boxes. Ethan noticed. He started including her in more meetings, asking her opinion on foundation strategy. They'd have lunch sometimes in his office, talking about the programs and their vision for expanding services. You've changed this place, he told her one afternoon. The whole foundation feels different, more alive. Diana deserves most of the credit. Diana's been here 5 years. She's brilliant, but she was working within the same old framework. Ethan leaned back in his chair. You questioned everything. You made us think about people instead of metrics. I just did what felt right. That's exactly my point. These lunches were becoming something Lena looked forward to, a break from the pressure, a chance to talk with someone who actually seemed to see her as competent. Ethan was easier to talk to than she'd expected. Funny in a dry way, thoughtful, genuinely curious about her ideas. She was careful not to read too much into it. This was her boss, not her friend. But she couldn't deny the small warmth in her chest when he smiled at something she said. Brandon definitely noticed. He cornered her in the elevator one evening as she was leaving. "You're spending a lot of time with my brother." Lena kept her eyes on the floor numbers ticking down. "We work together." "You have lunch in his office 3 times a week. That's not work." "We discuss foundation business." "I'm sure you do." The elevator reached the lobby. Brandon put his hand on the door to keep it from closing. "I meant what I said. Stay away from him personally. He's vulnerable and you're— I'm what?" Lena's patience snapped. "Poor, unsuitable? Not good enough for your family?" "All of the above." Brandon's voice was flat. "Ethan's been through hell. He doesn't need some gold digger pretending to care about his sad widower routine to get her claws in. You know what? I'm done being polite about this." Lena stepped closer, anger burning hot in her chest. "Your brother gave me a job because he saw me help someone. That's it. I'm not after his money. I'm not trying to replace his wife. I'm just trying to do good work and help my dying mother, and maybe, just maybe, prove that people like me deserve chances too." "People like you, but people, yeah, people like me. People who grew up poor and didn't go to fancy schools and had to choose between college and keeping the lights on. We're not all con artists, Brandon. Some of us are just trying to survive." She pushed past him, out of the elevator and across the lobby. Her hands were shaking, but she felt powerful, righteous. Behind her, Brandon called out, "I'm still watching you." Let him watch. She had nothing to hide. But that night, lying in her apartment and staring at the ceiling, Lena couldn't shake the worry that Brandon was right about one thing. She was starting to care about Ethan as more than just her boss. And that was dangerous for more reasons than she wanted to count. The feelings crept up on her like frost on a window, so gradual she didn't notice until suddenly everything looked different through the ice. It started small. The way Ethan remembered how she took her coffee. The fact that he asked about her mother every time they talked, genuinely listening to the answer. How he'd rearranged his schedule to attend Robert Hayes' job placement ceremony, standing in the back and clapping like it mattered. Lena told herself it was just professionalism, kindness, the behavior of a good boss who cared about his employees. But then there was the afternoon 3 months into her job when Maya came to the office. Lena was reviewing case files when she heard a child's voice in the hallway. She looked up to see a small girl with dark curls holding Ethan's hand, chattering about something that had happened at school. "And then Marcus said his dad could beat up any dad, but I said my dad runs a whole company, so he's probably stronger because of all the stress, right?" Ethan's laugh was warm and genuine in a way Lena had never heard before. "I don't think that's how stress works, sweetheart." "Well, you should still be strong. You're my dad." They passed Lena's open door. Maya spotted her and stopped walking. "Who's that?" Ethan followed his daughter's gaze. "That's Lena. She works here." "Lena, this is Maya." The little girl studied Lena with the unnerving directness of children. "You're pretty. Do you have kids?" "Maya," Ethan said, a warning in his voice. "What? I'm just asking." But Maya was still looking at Lena with something calculating in her 8-year-old eyes. "No kids," Lena said, smiling despite the awkwardness. "Just me." "Do you like kids?" "I do." "Do you think my dad's handsome?" "Maya!" Ethan's face flushed. "That's enough questions. Say nice to meet you and let's go." "Nice to meet you," Maya said obediently. Then, quieter, but still audible. "She does think you're handsome, I can tell." Ethan practically dragged his daughter down the hallway while Lena sat frozen at her desk, mortified and weirdly charmed at the same time. Diana appeared in her doorway 30 seconds later, grinning. "Did Maya just interrogate you about dating her dad? Is it that obvious?" "Only to everyone with eyes. That kid's been interviewing every woman who talks to Ethan for the past year." Diana leaned against the doorframe. "She asked me once if I'd consider marrying him for tax purposes." Despite her embarrassment, Lena laughed. "What did you tell her?" "That I was already married and her dad wasn't my type. She asked what my type was and I said women, which shut down that line of questioning pretty quick." Diana's smile faded into something more serious. She's a good kid. Lonely, though. Ethan does his best, but he's not exactly emotionally available. He seems like a good father. He's a present father. There's a difference. Diana checked her watch. Anyway, I came to tell you the quarterly numbers are in for homecoming. You're going to want to see this. The numbers were good, better than good. Of their 15 active participants, 12 were maintaining stable housing and employment. 2 were in intensive therapy but showing progress. Only 1 had dropped out completely. 80% retention, Diana said, pulling up the comparison charts. The previous program never broke 45%. Lena, this is actually working. It's only been 3 months. We need more time. I know. But this is enough to present to the board for program expansion. If we can maintain these numbers, we could double enrollment next quarter. Lena felt a surge of pride so fierce it almost hurt. This was hers, not handed to her, not given out of pity. She'd built something that actually helped people, and it was working. Let's do it, she said. They scheduled the presentation for the following board meeting, 2 weeks away, which meant 2 weeks of refining their proposal, gathering testimonials, preparing for Brandon's inevitable attacks. Robert Hayes agreed to speak at the presentation. So did Michael, a former Army medic who'd been homeless for 6 years before homecoming. You sure about this? Lena asked Michael during one of their check-ins. You don't have to put yourself out there. I want to. People need to know these programs matter. Michael looked down at his hands, calloused from his new job in construction. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car and shooting heroin to forget what I saw in Afghanistan. Now I've got an apartment, a job, a therapist who doesn't treat me like I'm broken. That's worth talking about. The night before the presentation, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed running through her talking points, imagining all the ways Brandon could tear them apart. Her phone buzzed at 11. A text from Ethan. You awake? She stared at it for a long moment before replying. Unfortunately. Me too. Maya had a nightmare. She's finally back asleep, but I'm wired. Sorry, nightmares are rough. She dreams about her mom sometimes, gets confused about whether Sarah's really gone or just away on a trip. A pause. Anyway, I wanted to say good luck tomorrow. You're going to be great. You don't know that. I do. I've watched you work for 3 months. You care about this more than anyone I've ever met. That matters more than polish or experience. Lena typed and deleted several responses before settling on, Thank you. That means a lot. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. She didn't get sleep, but she felt warmer somehow, less alone in the darkness. The next morning, the boardroom felt different, more crowded. Ethan had invited several major foundation donors to observe, which meant the stakes had tripled overnight. Brandon looked furious about the additions. He pulled Ethan aside before the meeting started, their voices low but tense. You didn't tell me you were bringing donors. I didn't realize I needed your permission. This is a board meeting, not a publicity stunt. It's a presentation about a program that's actually working. I thought people who fund us might want to see that. Ethan's voice had an edge Lena had never heard before. Unless you'd prefer we keep our successes quiet. Brandon's jaw clenched. He glanced at Lena, then back at his brother. This is about her. You're showing off for the waitress. Her name is Lena. She's our program director, and this has nothing to do with showing off. It's about demonstrating impact. If you can't see what she's doing is her job. Brilliantly. The question is why that threatens you so much. They stopped talking as others filed in. Brandon took his seat with barely controlled anger while Ethan moved to the head of the table, composed and professional like the argument had never happened. Diana started the presentation, walking through the data. Retention rates, cost analysis, long-term sustainability projections. She was polished and confident, every number backed by research. Then it was Lena's turn. She stood, notes trembling slightly in her hands. The donors watched with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. Brandon looked like he was waiting for her to fall apart. 3 months ago, we launched Homecoming with a simple premise. That people deserve more than just a roof over their heads. They deserve dignity, support, and a genuine chance to rebuild. Lena clicked to a slide showing Robert Hayes on his first day. Gaunt, tired, wearing clothes that didn't fit. This is Robert, Marine Corps veteran, homeless for 18 months after losing everything. Next slide, Robert in a work uniform, standing outside an auto shop, smiling. This is Robert now, employed full-time as a machinist, living independently, attending therapy for PTSD. He's not fixed, there's no magic cure for trauma, but he's stable, he's got hope, and he's here today to tell you about it himself. Robert stood from where he'd been sitting along the wall. He walked to the front slowly, and Lena saw him transform from the nervous man she'd coached through his talking points into the Marine he'd once been. Straight back, clear voice. I don't like asking for help. Spent my whole life working, providing for my family, taking care of myself. When I ended up homeless, it felt like failure. Like I'd lost everything that made me worth something. He paused. But this program, these people, they didn't treat me like a failure. They treated me like someone who'd hit hard times and deserved a hand up. The room was silent. I'm not the only one. Michael over there. He was living in his car. Sarah, different Sarah. She was sleeping in shelters and stealing food to survive. Now we've all got jobs, homes, futures, because somebody decided we were worth investing in. Robert looked directly at the donors. Your money didn't just put roofs over our heads. It gave us back our lives. He sat down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then one of the donors started clapping. Others joined. Even some of the board members who'd seemed skeptical were nodding. Brandon wasn't clapping. He was staring at his tablet, jaw tight. Michael spoke next, his testimony raw and powerful. Then Diana presented the expansion proposal, doubling enrollment, adding services for homeless families, partnering with more job training programs. The budget increase is significant, she acknowledged. $4.2 million annually, but the return on investment in human terms is undeniable. I have questions. Brandon's voice cut through the room. These success stories are compelling, but 3 months isn't enough time to determine long-term viability. How do we know these people won't relapse? How do we know we're not just delaying the inevitable? Lena felt her temper flare but kept her voice level. We don't know. That's the truth. Some people will relapse, some will fail, but 80% retention after 3 months is unprecedented for this population. And even if half of them eventually fall back into homelessness, that's still 40% more than we were saving before. So we're supposed to spend millions on a coin flip? We're supposed to spend millions on people. Human beings who served our country, who worked their whole lives, who deserve better than dying on the street because we decided they weren't worth the investment. Lena's voice rose despite herself. You want guarantees? There are none. Life doesn't come with guarantees. But choosing to help people even when success isn't certain, that's called compassion. Maybe you should try it. The room went dead silent. Diana's eyes were wide. Ethan's expression was unreadable. The donors looked shocked, and Brandon's face had gone red with rage. How dare you? Brandon. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. Let's keep this professional. Professional? She just insulted me in front of donors. You insulted the people we're trying to help by calling them a coin flip. Ethan looked at his brother with something like disappointment. Lena's right. We can't guarantee outcomes, but we can guarantee effort, and this program deserves expansion. Of course you think so. You've been supporting her from day one, no matter how inappropriate. Inappropriate? Now Ethan's voice had real anger in it. What exactly are you implying? I'm implying that your judgment is compromised, that you've let personal feelings interfere with sound business decisions. Personal feelings? Ethan stood. My personal feeling is that I'm tired of running a foundation that cares more about optics than impact. My personal feeling is that Lena has done more good in 3 months than we accomplished in 3 years before she arrived. And my personal feeling is that you need to back off. Brother stared at brother across the table. The air felt electric with tension. Finally, one of the donors cleared her throat. If I may, I've funded numerous initiatives over the years. This is the first presentation I've attended where I actually believed the people running the program cared about the people they're serving. She looked at Lena. I'd like to increase my donation to cover half the expansion cost, assuming the board approves it. Another donor spoke up. I'm in for 25%. The momentum shifted. Board members who'd been silent started asking genuine questions about implementation, timeline, measurable outcomes. Brandon tried to regain control of the conversation, but Ethan smoothly guided the discussion back to productive territory. 90 minutes later, the expansion passed. 10 votes in favor, 2 against. Brandon was one of the 2. After the meeting, donors surrounded Lena and Diana, asking questions and offering additional support. Robert and Michael were telling their stories to anyone who'd listen. It felt like victory. But Lena watched Brandon leave the boardroom, watched the cold fury in his eyes, and knew this wasn't over. She was right. 2 weeks later, Brandon called an emergency board meeting. Lena wasn't invited. She found out from Diana, who'd heard from one of the board assistants. He's got something. I don't know what, but he's been meeting with lawyers and investigators. Lena, I think he's coming after you. For what? I haven't done anything wrong. I know that, but Brandon's been digging into your background. If there's anything in your past that could look bad, there's nothing. I'm boring. I've worked, paid my bills, taken care of my mom. That's my whole life. Diana looked worried anyway. Just be prepared. Whatever he's planning, it won't be small. That night, Lena barely slept again. She ran through her entire history, trying to think of anything Brandon could use against her. Unpaid parking tickets? None. Criminal record? Clean. Bad relationships? Non-existent. She'd been too busy working to date. The only dark spot in her past was her father. He'd left when Lena was 12, disappeared with barely an explanation. She'd learned later, much later, that he'd gotten involved in some kind of financial trouble. Her mother never talked about it, and Lena had stopped asking. But that was her father's history, not hers. That couldn't matter now. Could it? 3 days before the Cole Foundation Gala, the biggest fundraising event of the year, Ethan called Lena into his office. Close the door. His voice sounded wrong, strained. Lena closed the door and sat down. What's wrong? Brandon's going to make a move at the gala. I don't know exactly what, but he's been hinting that he has information that will expose the truth about you. Ethan ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. I've tried to get it out of him, but he's being cagey. Just kept saying that the donors deserve to know who they're really supporting. Lena's stomach dropped. Information about what? I don't know. That's what worries me. He looked at her directly. Is there anything in your past that could be twisted into something damaging? Anything at all? My father. The words came out quiet. He left when I was a kid. I found out later he'd been involved in some kind of fraud, but I don't know details. My mom wouldn't talk about it. Ethan's expression shifted. What kind of fraud? I don't know. I was 12. He just disappeared one day and we never heard from him again. Your father's name? Marcus Hart. Why? Ethan was already typing on his computer, searching something. His face went pale. What? What is it? He turned his monitor toward her. A news article from 15 years ago. Financial advisor Marcus Hart sentenced to 8 years for investment fraud. Lena read in numb silence. Her father had been running a Ponzi scheme, stealing from clients, destroying families' savings. The article mentioned several victims by name. One of them was Cole Financial Group. Not a huge amount, only $50,000 in the grand scheme of Ethan's company. But enough. He stole from you, Lena whispered. From the company. Before I was running it, this was my father's era. But yes. Ethan closed his laptop. Did you know? No, I swear I had no idea. My mom just said he'd made bad choices and had to go away. I thought maybe drugs or something. Not... She couldn't finish. I believe you. But Brandon won't. No. He'll use this to make it look like you targeted me on purpose. Like you've been running some kind of long con to get back at the company your father stole from. Ethan stood, paced to the window. It's insane, but he'll frame it that way. Make you look like a manipulative gold digger who planned this from the start. Lena felt sick. The gala. He's going to do it at the gala in front of all the donors. Probably. Maximum embarrassment, maximum damage to your credibility, and the foundation's reputation. Then I won't go. That makes you look guilty. Going makes me look like I'm walking into an ambush. Lena stood too, anger rising through the fear. Why is he doing this? What did I do to make him hate me so much? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, you made me feel something again. Brandon sees that as a threat. The words hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them had voiced before. Ethan, I know, I'm your boss. This is inappropriate. I've been trying to ignore it for months. He turned to face her. But Brandon's right about one thing. My judgment is compromised when it comes to you. Not because you're manipulating me, but because He stopped himself. Because I care about you more than I should. Lena's heart was racing. I care about you too. But that doesn't change what's about to happen. Brandon's going to destroy my reputation at the gala, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. We could cancel the gala. That makes it worse. Makes it look like we're hiding something. Then we face it head on, go to the gala, let Brandon play his cards, and we tell the truth. That you didn't know about your father's crimes, that you've done nothing but good work since you started here. Will anyone believe that? I will. Diana will. Robert and Michael and everyone you've helped will. Ethan moved closer. Brandon wants you to run, wants you to prove him right by disappearing, so we don't give him that satisfaction. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to think that the truth would be enough, but she'd seen how the world worked. Rich people protected their own, and she was decidedly not one of their own. The night of the gala arrived too quickly. Lena stood in her small apartment staring at the dress Diana had helped her pick out. Deep blue, simple, elegant, the kind of thing she never imagined owning. Her mother sat on the couch, oxygen cannula in her nose but eyes bright. The treatments were working. She could breathe again, think clearly, be present. It was a miracle bought with Ethan's generosity. You look beautiful, baby. I look terrified. That too. Carol smiled. But you're going anyway. That's courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Her mother stood slowly, came over to adjust Lena's necklace. Whatever happens tonight, I'm proud of you. You've helped people. You've done good work. Nobody can take that away. Brandon's going to try. Let him. You've survived worse than some rich boy's tantrum. Lena hugged her mother carefully, mindful of her fragility. I love you, Mom. Love you too. Now go show them what you're made of. The car Ethan had sent arrived at 7. Lena rode through the city alone, watching ordinary people go about their ordinary lives through tinted windows. She envied them. The gala was being held at the Meridian Hotel, a glittering palace of marble and gold. Lena walked in and immediately felt out of place despite her careful preparation. Everyone here looked like they belonged, wealthy, confident, draped in diamonds and designer labels. Diana found her near the entrance. There you are. Ethan's looking for you. She lowered her voice. Brandon's been talking to donors all evening, laying groundwork, I think, building anticipation for whatever he's planning. Where's Ethan? Ballroom. Come on. They navigated through crowds of beautiful people drinking expensive champagne and making small talk about their vacation homes. Lena felt like an anthropologist studying an alien species. Ethan was talking to a group of donors but broke away when he saw her. He was in a tuxedo, looking every inch the billionaire he was. For a moment, Lena could barely breathe. You came, he said quietly. You asked me to. I wasn't sure you would. He offered his arm. Walk with me? They moved through the ballroom slowly, Ethan introducing her to donors and board members. Lena shook hands and smiled and tried not to feel like a condemned prisoner enjoying her last meal. Brandon watched from across the room, phone in hand, waiting. At 8:30, the presentations began. The foundation director gave a speech about impact and growth. Several major donors were recognized and applauded. Everything proceeded normally. Then Brandon took the stage. Thank you all for being here tonight. Your generosity makes our work possible. His smile was practiced, perfect. This year, we've seen tremendous growth in our programs, particularly in veterans services. I'd like to recognize someone who's been instrumental in that growth. Lena Hart, our program director. Scattered applause. Lena felt her face flush as people turned to look at her. Lena came to us from an unusual background, not the typical foundation experience, but my brother Ethan believed she had something special to offer. Brandon's tone shifted, became almost sympathetic. What we didn't know at the time was just how personal this work was for Lena. Ethan's hand found Lena's under the table, squeezed tight. You see, Lena's father was Marcus Hart. Some of you might remember that name. Brandon clicked a remote. A photo appeared on the screens around the ballroom, a mugshot of Marcus Hart from 15 years ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus Hart defrauded dozens of families out of their life savings. He ran a Ponzi scheme that destroyed lives, including stealing $50,000 from Cole Financial Group. Brandon paused for effect. The very company that now employs his daughter. The murmuring grew louder. Lena felt hundreds of eyes on her, judging, condemning. Now, I want to be clear. There's no evidence that Lena knew about her father's crimes when she started working here. But the optics are troubling, aren't they? The daughter of a man who stole from us, suddenly working in our foundation, earning our trust, having access to millions of dollars in charitable funds. That's enough. Ethan stood. His voice carried across the ballroom. I'm just sharing information our donors deserve to know. You're implying guilt by association. Lena was 12 years old when her father went to prison. She had nothing to do with his crimes. Perhaps not. But don't you think it's strange that she never mentioned it? That she let you hire her, grow close to her, all while hiding this connection? Brandon looked out at the crowd. I'm just asking the questions I'm sure many of you are thinking. Lena couldn't take it anymore. She stood, legs shaking, but voice steady. You're right. I didn't tell anyone about my father. Do you want to know why? The ballroom went silent. Because I was ashamed. Because I spent my entire childhood wondering what I did wrong to make him leave. My mother wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't explain where he went or why. I found out about the fraud from kids at school who'd read about it in the paper. They called me the thief's daughter, said I'd probably grow up to be a criminal too. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. So yeah, I didn't advertise that my father was a con artist. I tried to forget it. I worked hard, kept my head down, tried to be nothing like him. And when Ethan offered me this job, I didn't think about my father stealing from his company 15 years ago because I was too busy thinking about my dying mother and whether I could actually help people like Robert Hayes. She looked directly at Brandon. You want to know if I'm running a con? If I'm after your family's money? The truth is boring. I'm just someone who was poor and struggling and got offered a chance. I took it. I worked my ass off. And I helped people. That's it. That's the whole story. No secret agenda, no manipulation, just a waitress who tried to do something good. Tears were streaming down her face now, but she didn't care. So if you want to fire me for being related to a criminal I haven't seen in 15 years, go ahead. But don't you dare suggest I'm anything like him. I've spent my whole life trying to be better than what he was. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the exit, head high despite her tears. Behind her, she heard Ethan's voice. If the rest of you would excuse me. He caught up with her in the hallway outside the ballroom. Lena, wait. I can't go back in there. You don't have to. That was... He stopped, seemed to search for words. You were incredible, brave and honest, and everything Brandon accused you of not being. Everyone in that room thinks I'm a fraud. Everyone in that room just watched you defend yourself with more dignity than most of them have ever shown. Ethan moved closer. And for what it's worth, I believe every word you said. Lena laughed, bitter and broken. That's great, but it doesn't change anything. Brandon won. He destroyed my credibility in front of all your donors. He destroyed his own credibility, attacking someone for their parents' crimes, making someone cry in front of 300 people. That's not how you win. That's how you show everyone what kind of person you really are. You're just saying that because what? Because I care about you. I already admitted that. Ethan's voice dropped. And right now I'm going to go back in there and tell my brother exactly what I think of his performance. Then I'm going to tell every donor in that room that if they have a problem with you, they have a problem with me. Ethan, you can't. Watch me. He turned back toward the ballroom. Lena watched him go, this billionaire who'd walked into her diner months ago and changed everything. Through the doors, she heard his voice over the sound system. I'd like to say something about what just happened. Lena moved closer, listening. My brother Brandon believes he's protecting me, protecting our family. I understand that impulse. But what he just did to Lena Hart was cruel and unnecessary. A pause. Lena didn't choose her father. None of us choose our parents or the sins they commit. What she did choose was to help people, to stand up for a homeless veteran when nobody else would, to rebuild her life while caring for her dying mother, to take a job she wasn't qualified for and work harder than anyone I've ever met to justify that chance. Lena's breath caught. Some of you are probably wondering if my judgment is compromised, if I'm defending Lena because of personal feelings. Another pause, longer this time. You're right. I do have personal feelings. She reminds me what it means to care about people instead of just managing them. She brought humanity back to our foundation. And yes, she makes me feel something other than numb for the first time since my wife died. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But, That doesn't make her unqualified. It doesn't make her a con artist. It makes her someone who still believes in kindness despite a lifetime of reasons not to. And if that's not who we should be supporting with our foundation, then I don't know what we're doing here. Silence. So here's what I'm proposing. Anyone who has doubts about Lena can speak to me directly. Review the program data. Talk to the veterans we've helped. Make up your own minds instead of letting Brandon make them for you. His voice hardened. But if you choose to withdraw your support based on what happened here tonight, I'll understand. Because honestly, I'm not sure I want to work with people who judge someone for their parents' mistakes instead of their own actions. Through the door, Lena heard scattered applause, then more. Then something that sounded like a standing ovation. A moment later, Ethan emerged from the ballroom. His eyes found hers. Let's get out of here. What about the gala? I don't care about the gala. I care about you. They left through a side exit, abandoning the glittering party for the cold night air. Ethan's driver was waiting. They climbed into the back of the car in silence. Where to, sir? Ethan looked at Lena. Where do you want to go? She thought about it. Somewhere normal, somewhere that doesn't cost $1,000 a plate. He smiled. Maggie's Diner? Perfect. They drove across town, this billionaire in a tuxedo and this broken waitress in a borrowed dress, back to where everything had started. Maggie's Diner was mostly empty on a Saturday night. They slid into the same corner booth where Ethan had sat months ago, back when he was just a stranger watching Lena defend a homeless man. Coffee? The new waitress asked, not recognizing either of them. Please, they said in unison. After she left, Ethan and Lena sat in silence for a long moment. I should probably resign, Lena finally said. Don't. Everyone's going to think, I don't care what everyone thinks. Ethan reached across the table, took her hand. Lena, I'm not good at this. At feelings or vulnerability or any of it. I've spent 3 years building walls so high I could barely see over them. But you made me want to tear them down. That sounds painful. He laughed, surprised. It is, terrifying actually, but also the most real thing I've felt since Sarah died. Lena looked at their joined hands. I can't be her. I can't replace what you lost. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are. Stubborn and kind and brave enough to stand in front of a ballroom full of people and tell the truth even when it hurts. What about Brandon? What about everyone who thinks I'm using you? Brandon will come around or he won't. Everyone else can believe whatever they want. Ethan squeezed her hand. But I need you to know something. You didn't manipulate me. You didn't trick me. You just reminded me that there's more to life than going through the motions. And I'm grateful for that, whatever happens next. Lena felt tears threatening again. I don't know how to do this, how to be with someone like you. Our worlds are so different. Then we figure it out together, if you want to. I want to. I'm just scared. Me too, Ethan admitted, but maybe that means it matters. The coffee arrived. They drank it slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Maya's latest school project, Lena's mother's progress, whether Robert Hayes would actually marry the woman he'd met at his therapy group. Normal things, human things. And for the first time since the gala, Lena felt like maybe everything would be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. Which was all she'd ever really needed. The Monday after the gala felt like walking into enemy territory. Lena arrived at the Cole Foundation offices expecting whispers, pointed stares, maybe a security escort to clean out her desk. Instead, she found a crowd waiting by the elevators. Robert Hayes stood at the front, still in his work uniform from the early shift. Behind him were Michael, 3 other homecoming participants, and about a dozen foundation staff members Lena barely knew. What's happening? She asked Diana, who was standing to the side with her arms crossed and a satisfied smile on her face. They heard what Brandon did. They're not happy about it. Robert stepped forward. We wanted you to know something, Ms. Hart. What that man said about your father, that's got nothing to do with who you are. You gave me my life back. You did that for all of us. So if anyone's got a problem with you working here, they've got a problem with us too. The others nodded, murmured agreement. Lena felt her throat close up. You don't have to do this. Yes, we do, Michael said. You stood up for us when nobody else would. Now we're standing up for you. They rode the elevator together. this strange army of veterans and social workers, and one very overwhelmed former waitress. When the doors opened on the foundation floor, more staff were waiting. Someone had printed out the homecoming success statistics and taped them to the walls like protest signs. Lena wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. Her office had flowers on the desk, cheap grocery store carnations, the kind she used to buy for her mother. A card read, "From everyone you've helped, don't let the bastards win." She was reading it when Ethan appeared in her doorway. "I see you've got backup." "I don't understand. I thought everyone would hate me after you showed them what courage looks like." Ethan came in, closed the door. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept. "Lena, people aren't stupid. They saw what Brandon did. They know the difference between holding someone accountable and publicly humiliating them for something that happened when they were a child." "Where is Brandon?" "Taking a leave of absence. The board suggested it might be wise after his performance Saturday night." Ethan's expression was complicated. Anger and sadness and something like relief mixed together. "He's my brother. I love him. But he crossed a line, and there are consequences for that. I never wanted to come between you two." "You didn't. Brandon's been building towards something like this for years. The control issues, the paranoia, the need to protect me from everything, including my own decisions." Ethan sat down heavily. "Losing Sarah broke something in both of us. I went numb. He went into overdrive trying to fix things that can't be fixed. This was inevitable." Lena sat across from him. "What happens now?" "Now we keep working. The donors I spoke to after you left, most of them were appalled at what Brandon did. Several actually increased their commitments. Mrs. Patterson, the one who offered to fund half the expansion, she wants to endow a scholarship in your mother's name for children of incarcerated parents." "What?" She said watching you talk about your father reminded her that kids shouldn't be punished for their parents' mistakes. She lost her own father to prison when she was young. Never told anyone. Ethan smiled slightly. Turns out vulnerability is contagious. Over the next week, something shifted at the foundation. The staff who'd been skeptical of Lena started actually talking to her instead of around her. Board members scheduled meetings to hear her ideas directly. The press coverage of the gala focused less on the scandal and more on Ethan's defense, framing it as a billionaire CEO standing up for second chances. Brandon remained conspicuously absent. Diana caught Lena up on the gossip during lunch one day. "He's at his house in the Hamptons. Ethan's been trying to call, but Brandon won't pick up. He hates me. He hates that he was wrong about you. There's a difference." Diana stabbed at her salad. "Brandon's whole identity is built on being the smart one, the strategic one, the one who sees through people's bullshit. You came in and proved he doesn't know everything. That's harder for him to process than any personal animosity. Think he'll ever come back? To the company? Eventually. To actually acknowledging you're not a con artist?" Diana shrugged. "That might take longer." But the foundation kept moving forward without him. Homecoming expanded to 30 participants. They launched a pilot program for homeless families. Lena gave her first television interview about the work, terrified but determined. The interviewer asked about the gala incident. Lena had practiced her response with Diana and Ethan until it felt natural. "My father made terrible choices that hurt people. I can't change that. What I can change is how I show up in the world. I chose to help people instead of taking from them. That's not revolutionary. It's just being decent. But sometimes decency is the most radical thing we can offer." The clip went viral. Suddenly, Lena was getting calls from other foundations, nonprofits, universities wanting her to speak. She hated the attention but forced herself to accept some of it, because every speech meant more people learning about veterans' issues, more potential funding, more chances to help. Her mother watched from home, healthy enough now to argue with Lena about overdoing it. "You're burning yourself out, baby. You're working at the foundation full-time, still pulling shifts at the diner, doing all these speaking engagements. I'm fine, Mom. You're running yourself into the ground to prove you deserve to be there. That's not fine." Carol was right, of course. Lena was working 16-hour days, trying to be so good at her job that nobody could ever question whether she deserved it. She showed up early, stayed late, said yes to every request. Ethan noticed. He started appearing at her office around 7 in the evening with takeout. "You need to eat. I need to finish this grant proposal." You need to eat, then finish the grant proposal. He set down containers of Thai food. When's the last time you went home before 9? Lena couldn't remember. They developed a routine. Ethan would bring dinner, they'd work side by side in her office, talking through foundation business, and sometimes other things. He told her about Maya's school play, about his fear that he was screwing up fatherhood. She told him about her mother's progress, about the weird guilt of watching her get better when so many others didn't. Robert's friend Jimmy died last week, Lena said one evening, picking at her pad thai. Overdose. He was on the waiting list for homecoming, but we didn't have space yet. That's not your fault, isn't it? If we'd expanded faster, if I'd pushed harder, Lena, you can't save everyone. That's not a failure. That's reality. Ethan set down his food. I've been where you are. After Sarah died, I threw myself into work because it felt like if I could just fix enough things, make enough money, help enough people from a distance, it would matter. But it didn't bring her back. It didn't even make me feel better. It just made me exhausted. What changed? You. He said it simply, like it was obvious. You showed me that helping people isn't about scale or numbers. It's about seeing individuals. Robert, Michael, your mother. One person at a time, actually connecting with them. That doesn't feel like enough. It's all we've got. The one person at a time part. Ethan reached across the desk, took her hand. And you need to include yourself in that. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to not be perfect. I don't know how to not be perfect. Not here. Everyone's watching, waiting to see if I fail. Then fail. Spectacularly. Prove that mistakes don't destroy you. Lena laughed despite herself. That's terrible advice. It's honest advice. You want to know what I've learned in 3 years of being a widowed father running a company I inherited too young? Perfection is a prison. Trying to control everything, never showing weakness, keeping everyone at a distance, it doesn't protect you. It just makes you alone. Is that what you were? Before? Yes. And I probably would have stayed that way if you hadn't walked into my carefully controlled life and refused to fit into any box I tried to put you in. He smiled. You're inconvenient, Lena Hart, in the best possible way. They were still holding hands across the desk. Lena knew she should pull away. This was her boss. This was inappropriate. This was asking for trouble. But she didn't want to. Maya asked me about you yesterday, Ethan said quietly. What did she ask? If you were my girlfriend. Lena's heart stuttered. What did you tell her? That we're friends. That you work at the foundation. That I care about you very much. He paused. She asked if that meant you might come to dinner sometime, as in, at our home. With her. Oh. You don't have to. I know that's complicated, meeting my daughter officially, making this more than just whatever this is. What is this? Lena asked. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and Lena saw past the billionaire CEO to the lonely man who'd been sleepwalking through his life until a waitress reminded him what it felt like to care. I don't know, but I'd like to find out, if you do. I do, but I'm scared of screwing it up, of Maya getting attached to someone who might not stick around, of everyone saying I'm with you for money or status, or let them say it. The people who matter know the truth. Do they? Because sometimes I'm not sure I even know the truth. How much of this is real and how much is just two lonely people grabbing onto each other because we're both drowning? The question hung between them, brutal and necessary. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, I think we're both drowning. I think we're both grabbing onto each other. And I think that's okay. Maybe that's how it works. You don't wait until you're perfectly healed to let someone in. You let them in while you're still broken and you figure it out together. That sounds messy. It will be. Spectacularly messy. He smiled. But I'm tired of clean and controlled and emotionally safe. I want messy. With you. Lena kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think about the consequences. She just leaned across the desk and kissed this man who'd changed her life in ways she was still discovering. He kissed her back, gentle and desperate at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, Lena was shaking. This is probably a terrible idea, she whispered. Definitely, the worst. Ethan touched her face. Want to do it anyway? Yeah, I really do. They decided to keep it quiet at first. Not secret. Lena refused to be anyone's secret, but private. They told Diana, who rolled her eyes and said she'd known for months. They told Lena's mother, who cried happy tears. And they told Maya, who reacted with the enthusiasm of an 8-year-old who'd been trying to matchmake her father for a year. Does this mean Lena's going to live with us? No, sweetheart. We're just dating, getting to know each other. But you already know each other. You work together. That's different from... It's complicated. Maya looked at Lena seriously. Do you like my dad? I do. Very much. Do you think I'm okay? Because some people think kids without moms are sad all the time. But I'm mostly fine, except sometimes at night. Lena's heart broke a little. I think you're more than okay. I think you're brave and smart and lucky to have a dad who loves you so much. Are you going to try to be my new mom? No. Nobody can replace your mom. But if you want, I could be your friend. We could hang out sometimes, do fun stuff together. Maya considered this. Like, what kind of fun stuff? I don't know. What do you like? Art and stories and pancakes. I like all those things too. Maybe we could make pancakes and draw pictures sometime. Okay, Maya paused. And if you're going to be around a lot, you should probably know that Dad's really bad at braiding hair. Like, really bad. So if you know how to braid, that would be helpful. Ethan looked mortified. I'm not that bad. Dad, you made a knot last week and Mom's hairdresser had to cut it out. Lena laughed, the sound surprising her. When was the last time she'd laughed like that? Not performing for others, not forcing it, just genuinely amused by life. They had dinner together that night. Takeout pizza in Ethan's penthouse apartment that was beautiful and sterile and desperately needed a child's chaos. Maya showed Lena her drawings, told elaborate stories about her classmates, braided Lena's hair with surprising skill for an 8-year-old. It felt normal, fragile, tentative, but normal. Later, after Maya went to bed, Ethan and Lena sat on his balcony overlooking the city. She likes you, Ethan said. I like her. She's amazing. She's been through a lot. The nightmares, the anxiety about me leaving her too. Some days I have no idea if I'm handling it right. I don't think there is a right way to handle grief. You just survive it the best you can. They were quiet for a while, watching the city lights. My father used to sit out here, Ethan said eventually. He'd drink scotch and talk about empire building, about legacy, about making sure the Cole name meant something. He was obsessed with control, with image, with never showing weakness. Is that why you're so careful? Why you keep everything locked down? Probably. I watched him run this company like a military operation. Everything scheduled, everything measured, no room for error or emotion. Then he had a heart attack at 56 and died angry at the world for not behaving the way he wanted. I'm sorry. Don't be. We weren't close. He was disappointed I wasn't more like him, more aggressive, more ruthless. He would have hated what I'm doing with the foundation. Too soft, too personal. Ethan looked at her. But Sarah would have loved it. She always said our money should mean something beyond just making more money. She sounds like she was special. She was. And for a long time I felt guilty for even thinking about being with someone else, like I was betraying her memory. And now I think she'd be glad I found someone who makes me want to actually live instead of just exist. Sarah believed in second chances. She believed people deserve to rebuild after loss. He took Lena's hand. I think she'd like you. Lena blinked back tears. I hope so. Over the next few months, they built something together. It wasn't perfect. Lena still struggled with imposter syndrome. Ethan still got too controlling when he was stressed. Maya had hard days when she missed her mother so much nothing helped. But they showed up for each other anyway. Lena taught Maya to paint. Ethan helped Lena prepare for speaking engagements. They had family dinners where Maya would dominate the conversation and Lena would catch Ethan's eye across the table and feel something she'd almost forgotten, hope. The foundation kept growing. Homecoming was being studied by researchers from 3 universities. Other cities were reaching out to replicate the model. Robert Hayes got promoted to supervisor at the auto shop and started mentoring other veterans coming through the program. And then Brandon came back. He showed up at Ethan's office on a Tuesday morning, unannounced. Lena was there too. They'd been reviewing budget allocations, and the temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees when Brandon walked in. I need to talk to you, he said to Ethan, then noticed Lena. Alone. Anything you need to say to me? You can say in front of Lena. Brandon's jaw tightened. Fine. I'm coming back to work. The board approved my return yesterday. I know. I voted for it. That seemed to surprise Brandon. You did? You're my brother. You made a mistake, a significant, hurtful mistake. But you're still family. The company needs you. Ethan leaned back in his chair. But we need to be clear about boundaries. You don't get to attack Lena again. You don't get to undermine the foundation's work because you don't like how we're doing it. And you definitely don't get to weaponize personal information about people to win arguments. I was trying to protect you. From what? From someone who actually cares about the work? From feeling something real for the first time in 3 years? Ethan's voice was firm but not angry. Brandon, I love you. But you need to understand that protecting me doesn't mean controlling my choices. It means trusting me to make my own decisions and supporting them even when you don't agree. Brandon was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Lena. I owe you an apology. Lena wasn't sure she'd heard him correctly. What? I was wrong. About you. About your motivations. I let my need to protect Ethan override basic decency and I hurt you in the process. That was inexcusable. He seemed to be forcing the words out, but they sounded genuine. I've spent the last 3 months thinking about what I did. Talking to a therapist, actually, which was Ethan's condition for me coming back. And I realize I've been treating everyone like potential threats since Sarah died. That's not fair to you or anyone else. Lena didn't know what to say. She'd expected Brandon to come back hostile, defensive, ready for round 2. Not this. Thank you, she finally managed. That means a lot. I'm not saying we're going to be friends. I'm not even saying I fully understand what you're doing here. But I'm willing to try. Brandon looked at his brother. Because Ethan's right. You've changed things at the foundation. The numbers don't lie. And I've never seen him this engaged with work since before the accident. Engaged with life, Ethan corrected quietly. That too. It wasn't a magic fix. Brandon remained skeptical of some of Lena's ideas, questioned budgets, pushed back on expansion plans. But he did it professionally now, without the personal attacks. They learned to work together, if not exactly in harmony, then at least in productive tension. And slowly, grudgingly, Brandon started to see what Ethan had seen. That Lena wasn't performing compassion for show. That she genuinely cared about the work, about the people, about making things better in ways that couldn't be measured on spreadsheets. The real turning point came 6 months after Brandon's return. His marriage had been falling apart for years, something Ethan mentioned to Lena one night, explaining that Brandon's wife had finally asked for a divorce. Brandon was devastated, barely functioning. Lena found him in his office late one evening, staring at his computer without really seeing it. You okay? Fine. Just working. Ethan told me about Christine. I'm sorry. Brandon laughed, bitter. You're the last person who should be sympathizing with me. I tried to destroy you in front of 300 people. You did, and it sucked. Lena sat down in his visitor's chair. But I also know what it's like when your life falls apart and you don't know how to put it back together. Is this where you tell me it gets better? No. This is where I tell you it stays hard, but you learn to carry it, and that having people around who give a damn makes it slightly less unbearable. Brandon looked at her, really looked at her, for maybe the first time since they'd met. Why are you being nice to me? Because holding grudges is exhausting. And because Ethan loves you, which means you matter to people I care about. Lena stood up. Also because everyone deserves a second chance. You taught me that, actually, by being so convinced I didn't deserve one that Ethan had to prove you wrong. I'm an idiot. Sometimes. But so am I. So is everyone. She moved toward the door, then paused. There's a grief support group I know about. For people dealing with divorce, loss, major life changes. If you're interested, I can send you the information. You go to something like that? I did, when my father left, when my mom got sick, when I thought the gala scandal would ruin everything. Sometimes talking to other people who are drowning helps you remember you're not alone in the water. Brandon was quiet. Then, send me the information. After that, things shifted between them. Not friendship exactly, but something like mutual respect. Brandon would ask Lena's opinion on foundation matters, actually listen to her answers. He showed up to homecoming events, talked to the veterans, started to understand what Lena had been saying all along about dignity and support. And Lena stopped waiting for him to sabotage her, stopped performing perfection to prove she deserved to be there, started believing that maybe she did belong, not because she'd earned it through suffering, but because she was good at the work and cared about it deeply. A year after the gala, the foundation held its annual fundraiser again. This time there was no scandal, no public humiliation, just presentations about impact and growth, testimonials from people whose lives had changed, and a recognition ceremony for staff who'd gone above and beyond. Lena won the award for program innovation. She stood on stage looking out at the same ballroom where Brandon had tried to destroy her and felt only gratitude. A year ago, I almost walked away from this work. I felt like I didn't belong here, like I was fooling everyone, including myself. She looked at Ethan, who was standing near the back with Maya. But I learned something important. Belonging isn't about where you came from or what qualifications you have on paper. It's about showing up, doing the work, caring about the outcome. And by that measure, I belong here as much as anyone. She talked about homecoming success, 40 veterans housed and employed, retention rates above 75%, expansion to 2 more cities in the planning stages. She thanked Diana, the staff, the board. She thanked Robert Hayes, who'd become her friend and her reminder of why this mattered. And she thanked Ethan, carefully keeping her language professional, even though everyone in the room knew they were together. For seeing potential in someone who'd never seen it in herself. For taking a risk on kindness instead of playing it safe. For building something that actually matters. The applause was warm and genuine. After the ceremony, donors and board members surrounded her, asking about the programs, offering support, treating her like an expert instead of an imposter. Maya ran up and hugged her waist. "You were amazing. Dad was crying." "I was not crying," Ethan said, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "I had something in my eye." "Sure, Dad, something called feelings." Later, after the event wound down and most people had left, Lena found herself back in that same hallway where she'd fled a year ago. But this time, Ethan was beside her, holding her hand, and she wasn't running from anything. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Surreal, good, terrifying," she laughed. "All of it at once." "Welcome to having a life that matters. It's uncomfortable." "Is it always this uncomfortable?" "Probably, but you get used to it." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the cleaning crew dismantle the gala decorations. "I never thanked you," Lena said eventually, "for what you said that night, standing up for me when everyone was watching. You did thank me, multiple times." "I know, but I mean," she struggled for words. "You didn't have to do that. You could have stayed neutral, protected yourself, but you chose me instead. It wasn't a choice." "Not really." Ethan turned to face her. "Lena, you walked into my life when I'd forgotten how to be human. You reminded me that there's more to existence than managing things from a distance. You made me want to actually feel things again, even when it hurt. I didn't stand up for you in spite of my position. I stood up for you because you made my position actually mean something." "I love you," Lena said. The words came out quiet but certain. Ethan smiled and it transformed his whole face. "I love you too. Have for months. I was just waiting for the right time to say it. Is this the right time? It's perfect." They kissed in the empty hallway, this billionaire and this former waitress who'd found each other in the unlikeliest of places. It wasn't dramatic or particularly romantic. They were both exhausted. Lena's feet hurt from her heels. Ethan needed to get Maya home to bed. But it was real. Messy and imperfect and real. 2 years later, Lena stood in a different kind of venue, an art gallery in the downtown district that specialized in emerging artists. The walls were covered with her paintings, the first work she'd created since abandoning her art degree all those years ago to take care of her mother. The centerpiece was a large canvas titled Dignity, a portrait of Robert Hayes sitting in a diner booth, coffee cup in hand, wearing his Marine Corps jacket. She'd painted it from memory, capturing the quiet strength in his face, the way he'd maintained his humanity despite everything trying to strip it away. Robert stood in front of it, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "You made me look noble." "I painted what I saw," Lena said simply. Her mother was there too, healthy now, breathing easily, chatting with Diana about the technical aspects of the brushwork. Maya was showing Ethan her own attempts at painting, which mostly involved purple and glitter. Brandon arrived late, looking uncomfortable in the artistic space. He studied the paintings for a long time without speaking. Finally, he approached Lena. "These are good. Really good. Thank you. I'm glad you didn't give up on this. The art, I mean. Would have been a waste." Coming from Brandon, it was high praise. The gallery was full of people, donors who'd supported Homecoming, veterans from the program, foundation staff, random art lovers who'd seen the promotional materials. Lena moved through them feeling overwhelmed and grateful and slightly dizzy from it all. She found Ethan standing in front of a smaller painting, one she'd almost left out of the show. It was of a corner booth in a diner, empty except for a single coffee cup. The light coming through the window was early morning blue-gray, that liminal time when the city's still deciding whether to wake up. "This is where it started," he said when she joined him. "Yeah. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't been there that morning? If I'd chosen a different diner, slept in, stayed home?" "Sometimes, but I try not to. Sliding door moments are dangerous to obsess over." "What do you mean?" "I mean, life is full of random chance. If my father hadn't been a criminal, if Robert hadn't walked into that diner, if Brandon hadn't tried to destroy me at the gala, any of those things could have gone differently and we'd be living completely different lives." Lena leaned against him. "But they didn't. We got this version, and I'm choosing to be grateful for it instead of wondering about all the others." "Even the hard parts?" "Especially the hard parts. They made the good parts mean something." Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist. "I'm going to ask you something, and you can say no. Maya will understand and I won't be—" "Yes." "You don't know what I'm asking." "Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, yes." He laughed, surprised. "You're supposed to let me do the whole speech. I practiced." "Okay, fine, do your speech." Ethan turned her to face him, suddenly serious despite the humor of the moment. "I spent 3 years convinced I'd used up my chance at love, that Sarah was it, and everything after would just be going through the motions. You proved me wrong. You showed me that life doesn't run out of chances. We just have to be brave enough to take them." Lena felt tears building but didn't look away. "Maya and I, we're a package deal. Complicated, messy, probably going to make mistakes. But we'd like you to be part of that package, officially, permanently." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "Will you marry us?" The ring was simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious. Exactly what Lena would have chosen. "Yes, to all of it. The mistakes, the mess, the permanently part." Ethan kissed her while the gallery erupted in applause around them. Maya came running over, squealing with delight. "Does this mean you're going to be my stepmom?" "That's okay with you." "It's perfect. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a fancy dress? Can we get a dog?" "One thing at a time, sweetheart," Ethan said, but he was laughing. Lena's mother hugged her, crying happy tears. Diana was already on her phone planning the bachelorette party. Robert shook Ethan's hand with solemn dignity, like he was giving his blessing. Even Brandon managed a genuine smile. "Congratulations. Try not to screw it up, both of you." "We'll do our best," Lena said. Later, after the gallery closed and everyone went home, Lena and Ethan sat in that corner booth at Maggie's diner, the same booth where everything had started. Maggie brought them coffee without being asked. "I heard congratulations are in order." "News travels fast," Ethan said. "It's a small world when you matter to people." Maggie squeezed Lena's shoulder. "Proud of you, honey. Everything you've built, everything you've become. Your father would have been—" She stopped herself. "Surprised," Lena finished. "He would have been surprised, and maybe ashamed that he didn't do better himself." "You think about him much?" "Sometimes. Not with anger anymore, just sadness. He had chances to be different, and he chose wrong. I had chances too, and I chose differently. That's all we can do, make better choices than the generation before us." After Maggie left, Lena and Ethan sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee that was terrible but familiar. "I've been thinking about something," Lena said, "about what you said at the gala, about second chances." "What about it?" "I think that's the point of everything, not just us, but the foundation, Homecoming, all of it. We're just creating space for people to have second chances, to prove that one mistake, one bad circumstance, one terrible parent doesn't define your entire life." That's very profound for Midnight Diner philosophy. I'm serious, thinking about it. Robert got a second chance at independence. My mom got a second chance at health. You got a second chance at feeling something after loss. I got a second chance at believing I deserved good things. Lena looked at him. And maybe that's all any of us really need. Not perfection, not having everything figured out. Just someone willing to give us another shot. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, that's going in your next speech. You think? I know. It's exactly what people need to hear. That failure isn't final. That struggling doesn't make you worthless. That we all deserve chances to rebuild. They finished their coffee and walked out into the cold night, hand in hand, heading toward a future neither of them could have imagined in that first moment when a quiet man in a worn coat watched a frightened waitress stand up for a stranger's dignity. Because that's what second chances looked like. Not dramatic, not perfect, just two broken people choosing to build something better together. One decision at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One brave moment of choosing hope over fear. And if a waitress and a billionaire could find each other in the chaos, could build a life and a family, and a foundation that actually mattered, then maybe anyone could. Maybe that was the real lesson of Lena Hart's unlikely journey from that rundown diner to a life she'd never dared imagine. That where you started didn't determine where you ended up. That your parents' sins weren't your inheritance. That being brave enough to accept help wasn't weakness. It was the first step toward becoming someone who could offer help to others. The world was full of people like Robert Hayes and Carol Hart, and even Marcus Hart, people who'd fallen, failed, been forgotten. And it was equally full of people like Lena who kept showing up anyway, kept choosing compassion over cynicism, kept believing that things could be better even when all evidence suggested otherwise. Sometimes it took a crisis to crack open what needed changing. Sometimes it took a public humiliation to reveal what really mattered. Sometimes it took losing everything to understand what was worth fighting for. But always, it took courage to accept that you deserved a second chance. To believe that your story wasn't finished just because one chapter went wrong. To trust that somewhere out there, someone saw your worth even when you couldn't see it yourself. Lena had learned that lesson in a corner booth over bad coffee and an act of basic human decency. She'd learned it again when a stranger offered her an impossible opportunity, and she kept learning it every day as she helped others discover their own second chances. Because in the end, that was the only thing that separated people who rebuilt from people who stayed broken. The willingness to try again. To show up imperfect and scared and do it anyway. To believe that kindness mattered even in a world that often rewarded cruelty. And as Lena walked through the quiet city streets toward home, toward Ethan and Maya and a future full of beautiful uncertainty, she understood something fundamental about the human experience. We're all just trying to survive our own stories. Some of us get lucky enough to find people who make that survival feel like living, who transform our pain into purpose, our struggles into strength, our loneliness into love. That wasn't divine intervention. That wasn't fate or destiny or anything mystical. That was just people choosing to see each other, to help each other, to believe that everyone deserves dignity, respect, and the chance to start over. It was the most ordinary miracle there was, and it was enough.